أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Before we start this short discussion, whereby we hope to remind ourselves of certain realities which should bring about some improvement in our lives, therefore we hope to achieve some perfection, we need to be aware that this journey on this path toward perfection definitely has certain obstruction and obstacles. Shaitan will try to insinuate and distract us. So we pray to Allah to ask for His protection out of His love and out of His power to enable us to muster our courage and determination to overcome any distraction or deviation that Shaitan may try to introduce. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We hope to achieve certain goodness and guidance, and therefore we need to seek the help of Allah because of three reasons. Number one, Allah is the absolute perfect being, and therefore any perfection anywhere necessarily must originate from Him and Him alone, and hence any goodness or guidance we expect will come from Him, though it may reach us after passing various channels. And secondly, we seek His help and guidance because He is Rahman, His Rahmah, His love, His mercy, His care, His attention reaches out to each and everything in the universe, brings it to existence, maintains it, sustains it, provides it with all that is necessary for its development and reaching its perfection. And thirdly, we seek His help, His guidance, because He is Rahim, His extra love, His abundant mercy, His continuous grace is promised and available to those amongst us who believe in Him, who admit to His existence, and who submit to His will. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين. And we send our salutations and greetings and our expression of love and loyalty to the Holy Prophet of Islam, that most perfect man who managed to reach the highest pinnacle possible of perfection for any human being, for two reasons. Number one, his understanding and comprehension of who God is, what God's attributes are, of God's infinite love, knowledge, power, mercy, compassion, and all the other perfect attributes, and how God, moment by moment, out of His grace and wisdom and power and authority, is running the universe toward its perfection. His understanding of these realities was the maximum possible for any human being. And secondly, therefore, in all aspects of his life, be it private and personal or be it public, be it mental, be it emotional, be it behavioral, be it cultural, be it economic, be it political, in all dimensions of his life, he was the most humble and submissive to the will of God. And we send our salutations and greetings to his holy progeny, who are almost his equivalents, but secondary to him. And especially so on the third holy Imam, who sacrificed all that he had for the sake of Allah, who thereby created this supreme lesson, role model of sacrifice, of devotion, of dedication, of struggle to establish godly values on the earth. Elders in Islam, brethren in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. In the past nights, in our discussion about the importance of lamentation and weeping and mourning for the tragedy of Karbala, we reminded ourselves of the tremendous rewards that the Imams have informed us about. And secondly, we said that those rewards are conditional on us participating in these ceremonies, in these commemoration assemblies, in such a manner that we should identify those virtues and characteristics and those godly values, identify them, imbibe them, and integrate them into our lives in such a way that our lives then are transformed. And we discussed some of those values. Tonight, I would like to deal with one important aspect about Karbala, which is its divine decree and the divine design for the occurrence of the tragedy. We've seen in the past that one of the reasons why Karbala took place was because Imam was forced to pay allegiance and he refused to do so. One. Two, one other reason he mentions is that once he traveled to Mecca and he started receiving the invitations to come over to Kufa, he proceeded then to Kufa to establish the righteous government. And yet a third reason that he himself mentions in the wasiyah that he left with Ibn Hanafiya, with which we mention, is that he wants to establish virtue, he wants to eliminate vice, he wants to bring about reformation in a corrupt society. He wants to reintroduce the holy, godly lifestyle of the Prophet and Imam Ali alayhi salam. These are some of the goals. These are some of the reasons, some of the goals, some of the purposes of the uprising. However, if you scan the literature and the riwayat which are narrated to us about the tragedy, there's one other reason that's mentioned. And it keeps on repeating itself. And that is, God planned it. Right from the time when he visits the Prophet's grave for the last time before his departure from Medina, 1. To his arrival in Mecca, 2. To his explanation to Ibn Hanafiya, 3. To his explanation to other companions who wanted to dissuade him and persuade him against making this movement, 4. Through his declarations up until the time on the way between Mecca to Karbala and in Karbala, he keeps on repeating this one phrase: it was God's decree. And that's why I'm making this movement. Question: what does this mean? Let me just quote one or two of these examples and then try to analyze. For example, the incident narrated that when he went for the final farewell to the grave of the Holy Prophet, it's narrated he kept his head on the grave, and immediately he was transported and began to see a vision. He was not asleep, he was not in the state of dream. These powerful souls have the capacity to detach themselves from the physical world and divert their total attention to the realm of spirituality. And he experienced this vision there. He saw the Prophet come with a party of angels on his right, in front of him, on his left. And the Prophet addresses him, according to this narration, Ya Habibi, Ya Hussein, oh my dear grandson, oh Hussein. كأني أراك قريبا مرملا بدمائك. Oh Hussein, I see you very soon. You shall be fallen on the ground and in the dirt and in blood. Ya Habibi, Ya Hussein, I see you مذبوحا بأرض كرب وبلاء. I see you shall be slaughtered in the land of Karbala. Ya Habibi, Ya Hussein, I see you that you shall be thirsty, nobody ready to give you water. I see you hungry, nobody ready to feed you. Ya Habibi, Ya Hussein, Inna abaka wa ummaka wa akhaka qadimu alayya. They're with me. Mushtaquna ilayk. They're waiting for you. Come over. Notice the message. Why did Imam Hussein make this movement? According to this reason, it was a divine plan, and he had to follow that plan. Yet another tradition. There's several traditions. For example, Ibn Hanafiya advises him, do not proceed to Kufa. The people in Kufa have betrayed our father, why don't you go to Yemen? We've got more supporters there. And Imam says, allow me to ponder over it. The next day, Imam Hussein makes his move, and he proceeds. Ibn Hanafiya rushes and catches up with him. But you promised me to think about it, and you said you will not go ahead. Imam says, what can I do? Sha'Allahu an yarani qatila. It's the divine plan. I have to be killed. Yet a third tradition, just a representation. I want us to appreciate the significance of the divine plan. What does it mean? Mecca, he's about to depart the next day. The day previous to the departure, he gives out a sermon. Notice the reason he is departing Mecca. One of them is because of the fear of assassination by the henchmen of Yazid. But the direction in which he will proceed now is going to be toward Kufa, because almost 18,000 letters of invitation came from there. But they're all hopes of victory and support. I reach there, they will overthrow the corrupt regime and will establish the righteous regime. Alhamdulillah. Notice the speech. There is hope, but look at the speech. Alhamdulillah. Ma sha Allah. Wa la quwwata illa billah. Wa sallallahu ala rasulih. And then he says, خُطَّ الْمَوْتُ عَلَى وُلْدِ آدَمَ مَخَطَّ الْقَلَادَةِ عَلَى جِيدِ الْفَتَى. Let me tell you, death for the human being is just like that wonderful necklace on a young girl's neck. Ajib. You've been promised support. You are talking about death and the desirability of death. No, he goes ahead. Not only death is desirable for me, he goes one step ahead. He says, ما أولهني إلى أسلافي اشتياق يعقوب إلى يوسف. You know how intensely I desire death? Just like Yaqub deeply longed to be joined with Yusuf. Declaration of death. Death is definite. Death is desirable. Death is deeply desirable. Amazing. And then he explains, خُيِّرَ لِي مَصْرَعٌ أَنَا لَاقِيهِ. It has been decided. It has been decreed. I shall meet this end. And I'm ready for it. I'm longing for it. I'm deeply longing for it. كأني بأوصالي تتقطعها عسلان الفلوات بين النواويس وكربلاء. I can see myself. These animals are brutally chopping off parts of my body between Nawawis and Karbala. لا محيص عن يوم خط بالقلم. It has been decreed. The pen has written it down, and I cannot avoid it. The day shall come. رضا الله رضانا أهل البيت. If God has decreed it, we Ahlul Bayt are in total submission to the will of God, and we accept it. نصبر على قضائه. We shall remain steadfast and determined because it's the decree of God. وَيُوَفِّينَ أُجُورَ الصَّابِرِينَ. Of course he is going to reward us the tremendous award promised for those who are steadfast and resistant and determined in the way of God. أَلَا مَنْ كَانَ بَاذِلًا فِينَا مُهْجَتَهُ. I ask you, he's addressing in Mecca, I ask you, whoever amongst you is ready to give out the gift of the blood of his heart, his whole life. Whoever is ready to share with us the gift of his life. أَلَا مَنْ كَانَ بَاذِلًا فِينَا مُهْجَتَهُ وَمُوَطِّنًا عَلَى لِقَاءِ اللَّهِ نَفْسَهُ. And if he is ready to go back to his hometown. We all came from there. We all are going to go back there. Do you want to come with me? Are you ready to meet your Lord? فَلْيَرْحَلْ مَعَنَا فَإِنِّي رَاحِلٌ مُصْبِحًا. Tomorrow morning I'm going to depart. Come and join me. In summary, true, politically he was invited to go to Kufa. True, he was forced to swear allegiance and he refused to do so. True, he said the purpose is to eliminate vice and to establish virtue. But one factor that we need to understand clearly is the divine decree. Allow me to analyze this particular reason, because potentially the whole tragedy of Karbala can become, in a sense, meaningless for us. It will no longer be a role model. Oh, it was decreed. There was no way out. It had to happen. An imam was chosen to do it. Imam submitted to it. So what is there in it for me? How do I take this tragedy as a role model? We need to appreciate the question of the divine decree. Number one, is it possible for a human being to know the future? Number two, if it is possible, how do you reconcile the fact that God and God alone is the one who knows the ghaib? And number three, assuming that yes, it is possible to know the future, how do you reconcile the fact that when death is certain, Imam is proceeding for self-destruction? How do you explain that? Number one, the knowledge of the future, of the unseen, of what's going to happen the next moment or the next century, that ghaib in the Quran has been ascribed and attributed to God and God alone. God, the absolute being, therefore infinite in all his qualities, including his knowledge, alone knows the ghaib. There are numerous verses which speak about it. For example, Surah An'am, chapter 6, ayah number 59. وَعِنْدَهُ مَفَاتِحُ الْغَيْبِ لَا يَعْلَمُهَا إِلَّا هُ وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْبَرِّ وَمَا فِي الْبَحْرِ وَمَا تَسْقُطْ مِنْ وَرَقَةٍ وَلَا حَبَّةٍ فِي ظُلُمَاتِ الْأَرْضِ وَلَا رَطْبٍ وَلَا يَابِسٍ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مُبِينٍ. He has the keys to the unseen. The unseen treasures are tremendous, but the access to them is in the hands of God and God alone. And therefore, he knows whatever is on the land and whatever is on the sea, and he knows whatever leaflet falls on the ground, whatever seed is hidden in the depths of the ground. There is no dry or wet, but that is recorded in God's knowledge. Fi kitabin mubin. Knowledge belongs to God and God alone of the ghaib. However, on the other side, we see that the Imams did claim that they had the knowledge of the unseen. For example, these narrations I've quoted about Karbala. How do you reconcile the two? There are several explanations our scholars have given for the possibility of an Imam sharing and having the ilm of the ghaib, of what's going to happen in the future. Of course, there are some traditions where the Imams deny that. In one gathering, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, who says I have ilm ghaib? I don't have ilm ghaib. I'm paraphrasing the hadith. I had a slave girl and I wanted to discipline her, and she escaped from me and she's gone in one of the chambers in this house. I don't even know in which chamber she's located. The narrator says later on we went into an inside chamber in the house and we asked him, but we know you know the ghaib. He says, Imam explains, yes we do, but in the presence of others who could have possibly reacted negatively, Imam decided not to disclose. Aside from these traditions, there are numerous other traditions which clearly say the Imams knew the ghaib. The question is, how do you reconcile? God alone knows the ghaib. One explanation that's put forward by our scholars is, number one, departmentalization. There are certain knowledge of ghaib which God and God alone knows, and there are some other departments of knowledge which God then shares with others. For example, Surah Luqman chapter 31. Toward the end, there's a description of 5 different types of knowledge which God and God alone knows. Inna Allaha indahu ilmus sa'a. Chapter 31, ayah number 34, the last ayah of Surah Luqman. God alone knows when is the hour of reckoning. 1. 2. وَيُنَزِّلُ الْغَيْثِ. And He alone is the one who sends down rain. Where, when, how much. He alone knows that. 3. وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْأَرْحَامِ, and He knows what lies in the wombs. Not genetically. Oh, cloning will tell you genetically what's there in the wombs. Imam Ali says in Nahjul Balagha, what God knows is true genetically, this is what is there. But after it's born, what is going to happen? What characteristics will it actualize? How will it respond to different situations? Finally, will it gain salvation or end up in damnation? God alone knows. 4. وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ مَاذَا تَكْسِبُ غَدًا. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. And 5, finally, وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ بِأَيِّ أَرْضٍ تَمُوتُ. Nobody knows where they will perish and end their lives. إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ خَبِيرٌ. God alone is all-knowing. There's certain knowledge which God alone knows. Certain other knowledge God then gives. So for example, about Prophet Isa in Surah Al-Imran chapter 3, we are told that وَرَسُولًا إِلَى بَنِي إِسْرَائِيل. Remember about Jesus, He's a prophet who was sent to His people. قَدْ جِئْتُكُمْ بِآيَةٍ مِّن رَبِّي. Let me tell you, I have come with a miracle. I got a claim, and I've got a challenge, and I got a proof for that claim. My claim is I am a messenger from God. My proof is I can do certain extraordinary things which no other human being can do. Number 3, I've got a challenge. See if you can do something like this. If you can, then accept me. What are some of those extraordinary things that the Prophet Isa claimed he could do? Number 1, he says that إني أخلق لكم من الطين كهيئة الطير فأنفخ فيه فيكون طيرا بإذن الله. I take an immaterial, dead, inanimate clay, I shape it up into a shape of the bird. I breathe unto it with the name of God. It becomes alive. 1. 2. وأبرئ الأكمه والأبرص وأحيي الموتى بإذن الله. Bring me a dead man, I can bring him back to life by God's permission. Bring me an incurable disease, I can cure it by God's power. 3. وَأُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِمَا تَأْكُلُونَ. I can tell you, each one of you, what have you eaten today back home? وَمَا تَدَّخِرُونَ فِي بُيُوتِكُمْ. And what you have stored back home. بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ, of course. So departmentalization is one explanation for the ilm ghaib. Some knowledge specifically for God, other knowledge the Imams were granted. Yet a second explanation how a human being can know the future is knowledge is of 2 types. One is destined and determined and fixed, unchanging. The other one is changing. In Surah Ra'ad chapter 13, Allah says, يَمْحُ اللَّهُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيُثْبِتْ وَعِنْدَهُ عِلْمُ الْكِتَابِ. God alone has the power to establish certain things and create them. And He alone has the power to eliminate some other things. The 4th Holy Imam says, had it not been for this ayah whereby Allah can change the destiny, I would have told you whatever is going to happen till the end of the world. But I cannot, because destiny changes. So a second explanation for the possibility of why the Imams did have ilm ghaib of certain things and not of other things is some knowledge is fixed and determined. God alone knows that, the final destiny. Some other knowledge is changing. A sinner, life is shortened. A sinner suffers affliction. A person who is good to his parents, Allah prolongs his life. Oh, there are multitude of factors that play in the day-to-day determination of the destiny of every individual. I cannot predict the future. Yet a third explanation for how an individual can have ilm ghaib, though God alone knows all the ghaib, is that yes, you see, the Imams potentially had the power to understand if they willed it so. إِنَّ الْإِمَامَ إِذَا أَرَادَ أَنْ يَعْلَمَ عُلِّمْ. There are many riwayat which say that if the Imam wills, God provides. If it is in the wisdom of God to give that ilm ghaib, Allah teaches. If it is not in the wisdom of God, Allah does not provide that knowledge to the Imam. Perhaps, sometimes the destiny which is to occur, because it is going to be a test for the Imam, God doesn't give that knowledge. For example, the night of migration of the Holy Prophet, when Imam Ali had to sleep under the threat of assassination by the enemies, God withholds the knowledge of the outcome of this sleep. Is he going to really be assassinated and eliminated, or is he going to survive? Because the real test is, are you ready to sacrifice? We don't know the outcome. Do you love the Prophet? Are you devoted to the cause of God? Sacrifice. Sleep. In certain cases, Allah withholds the knowledge of the unseen. The Imam doesn't know everything. Yet a fourth explanation is, it's not that knowledge is departmentalized. It's not that knowledge is divided into the destined, determined, and fixed knowledge and the one which is changing. It's not that the Imam potentially has the capacity to receive knowledge if he wills it so, and Allah in His wisdom grants it so. Actually, in the real world, they have that knowledge. In Surah Baqarah, Ayat al-Kursi, chapter 2, ayah number 255, Allah says, يَعْلَمُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمَا خَلْفَهُمْ وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنْ عِلْمِهِ إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ. Nobody can comprehend the knowledge which God has, which is infinite, but that which He wills. If an individual, a human being, can perfect himself so much that he can elevate himself to get close to God, he can be granted the knowledge of the unseen in all affairs, be it destined, be it fixed, be it changing. But that knowledge is the one where the Imam is totally dependent. True, there are certain knowledges which even the Imams cannot access. The essence of God, for example. That's beyond comprehension. Nobody has access to that. In Surah Ali Imran, chapter 3, ayah number 30, Allah says, وَيُحَذِّرُكُمُ اللَّهُ نَفْسَهُ. And God is warning you about Himself. Don't come near me at the level of the essence. To begin to think who God is in His essence is prohibited. Not because God doesn't want us to know, because we don't have the capacity to know. Our minds are limited. We work with concepts, with mental constructs. A beautiful example one of our teachers gave us was that Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli, may Allah preserve him for the Hawza. He says, try to imagine that you want to have a picnic, take your mat, keep it out in the open, and bring your tea or food, whatever you want to eat it out there. If you do it in the safety of the land, it's okay. But try to imagine to do this in the middle of the ocean in a storm where the wind is blowing at 100 miles per hour. The moment you even try to keep anything stable, it is just eliminated. When you enter the domain of infinity, of the essence of God, where the thinker and the thought and the thinking is all eliminated, there is no way you can conceptualize and remain and survive. And therefore the Imams themselves have admitted, مَا عَرَفْنَاكَ حَقَّ مَعْرِفَتِكَ. We know you, yes, through your names. We know you through your attributes. We know you through your manifestations and actions in the world, but we don't know your essence. We cannot reach you at that level. مَا عَرَفْنَاكَ حَقَّ مَعْرِفَتِكَ مَا عَبَدْنَاكَ حَقَّ عِبَادَتِكَ. And therefore we cannot worship you in a manner that you and you alone deserve. Exclude this domain. The rest, there is a possibility for the Imam to reach a level where he can be granted knowledge of everything, including therefore whatever is going to happen in Karbala. The next question is, well, if Imam knows he is going to die, then how could you willingly proceed for self-destruction? There's an ayah in the Quran which is often quoted. وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ, chapter 2, ayah number 196. And do not proceed to certain death. Don't plunge into death. This ayah would tell us that if you know death is certain because of your actions, then do not self-destruct. Don't commit suicide, in other words. How come if Imam knew about the certain outcome, yet he proceeded for self-destruction? It's interesting, the scholars have responded to this potential question by saying, number one, this ayah is not addressed to the Imam. Number two, all right, I'll just explain why it's not addressed to the Imam. Number two, yes, it is addressed to the Imam, but the death that is talked about in this ayah, don't plunge yourself into death, it's not physical death. Number three, no, it's not that it's not addressed to the Imam. No, it's not that it's not physical death. It is physical death, but it is a death which is meaningful, whose consequences override its negative effects. The death which is prohibited is a death which is meaningless, which is fruitless, which is unproductive, which is destructive, therefore. Not a death which is productive. Three possible reasons. Let me elaborate. One reason scholars forward is the ayah doesn't talk to the Imam. It's not addressing the Imam. Don't self-destruct. Do you notice in the Quran there is the narration of the Prophet Musa and Khidr? They met together and Khidr begins to damage the boat and Musa says, no, you shouldn't do that. That belongs to somebody else. And secondly, they reach the town where he kills a young person. How could you dare assassinate a person? And thirdly, they reach a place where he reconstructs a wall. The domains and the spheres of activities differ of these two prophets. One is working in the apparent world, one is working behind the curtain. God has, for a temporary moment, opened the curtain and we are seeing the unseen world, how it operates. I have damaged the boat. Let me tell you why. Chapter 18, Surah Kahf, ayah number 65 onwards is the discussion of the story. Towards ayah number 79, the explanation is given why all these actions were performed by Khidr. أما السفينة فكانت لمساكين يعملون في البحر فأردت أن أعيبها وكان وراءهم ملك يأخذ كل سفينة غصبا. Let me explain to you why I damaged the boat. There was a tyrant who was behind him. He would have confiscated that boat in order to save him. Temporary damage to ensure long-term benefit. Sometimes we come across situations where we are afflicted, we suffer, we become sick, we have stress in our lives beyond our control. We don't know, but perhaps it's a temporary damage and harm for a long-term benefit. In the case of Musa, it was Khidr openly doing it. But Khidr was operating in the unseen world. The curtain has just been removed for a moment and we saw the unseen world. In our cases, from the unseen world, different human beings can be used as instruments to do that. The angels can be used as instruments to do that. Secondly, the reason why I killed the young man, وَأَمَّا الْغُلَامُ فَكَانَ أَبَوَاهُ مُؤْمِنَيْنِ. His parents were good people, faithful. فَخَشِينَ أَن يُرْهِقَهُمَا طُغْيَانًا وَكُفْرًا. We were afraid that when he grew up, he would lead his parents to deviation and to disbelief. فَأَرَدْنَا أَن يُبْدِلَهُمَا رَبُّهُمَا خَيْرًا مِنْهُ زَكَاةً وَأَقْرَبُ رُحْمًا. Our decree was that let's substitute, let's remove this young man In the unseen world, what would have happened? He could have become sick and died. But God opened the curtain. He showed how death occurs. The man was killed. But in our case, we would say a person dies young. We don't know, but perhaps there's a decree. God wanted to substitute. The riwayah has an interesting explanation. The boy was removed and they were given a girl. And you know who was this girl? This girl became the mother of, oh God, 10 prophets, 20 prophets, a large number of prophets. When we get a newborn, the first question is it a boy or is it a girl? You never know. A girl can be much better than a boy. You know what the imams tell us when you get a newborn? The fourth holy imam, and he was informed that he has a newborn in the house, he doesn't ask, is it a boy or is it a girl? He says, is the child born safe and sound or not? And the third case, وَأَمَّا الْجِدَارُ فَكَانَ لِغُلَامَيْنِ يَتِيمَيْنِ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ وَكَانَ تَحْتَهُ كَنْزٌ لَهُمَا. This wall that we reconstructed, damaged building, it should be destroyed and reconstruct something else. But the damage was restored temporarily to preserve something. It had a treasure under it which belonged to two yatims who are young, too immature right now to possess it. We want time, let them grow up so that they can possess the treasure that belongs to them. The interesting part here is God does not abandon anyone. If the parents have done something good, God does take care of the children. No! Look at the hadith. It's amazing. The hadith says it was not the immediate father who left behind something for them. It was their great-great-great-grandfather. Ajib. What I do today, its effect will show itself not in my first generation, second, third, multiple generations later on. وَنَكْتُبُ مَا قَدَّمُوا وَآثَارَهُمْ وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ أَحْصَيْنَاهُ فِي إِمَامٍ مُبِينٍ. It's inconceivable in a universe which is run by an all-wise, all-loving Lord for any individual to perform a small act of virtue, but that it is recorded and rewarded, not immediately, over generations. That's how the unseen world works. Don't self-destruct. The ayah is not talking to the imam because the imam works in a different domain. The domain of Khidr, not the domain of Musa. That's one possible explanation. The second possible explanation, you know it's death. Don't self-destruct. The ayah is addressed to the imam, but the death is not physical. You see, the preceding part of the ayah and the succeeding part of the ayah talks about وَأَنْفِقُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. That's the first part of the ayah. Spend in the way of God. The last part of the ayah, وَأَحْسِنُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Spend and be kind. In between, don't destroy yourself. So if I don't spend, and if I'm not kind, I destroy myself. Physically? No. Socially maybe. Politically maybe. Economically maybe. God will punish me in those areas. So true, the ayah may be talking to the imam, but who says it's talking about physical deaths? Don't self-destruct. Yet a third explanation is, no, the ayah is talking to the imam. Yes, the death is physical, but sometimes death is more important than life. Look at the declarations of the imam at various stages of his movement. إِنِّي لَا أَرَى الْمَوْتِ إِلَّا سَعَادَةً وَالْحَيَاةَ مَعَ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا بَرَمًا. I will never ever subjugate and submit myself to the tyranny of this despot, because life with honor, life with dishonor is worse than death with dignity. Sometimes death is more important than life if the goals you have to achieve are much larger. Let me conclude. It's true that one of the factors that determined the occurrence of Karbala was the divine decree. But it was a divine decree whereby the Imam was given the option that it is your duty under these circumstances that in order to establish godly values, to eliminate devilish vices, to introduce reformation in a corrupt society, to re-establish the holy godly practices of the Holy Prophet and the first Imam, that in such a situation, not the Imam, any mu'min, any believer in the truth, in godly values, must make an uprising. أَلَا تَرَوْنَ إِلَى الْحَقِّ لَا يُعْمَلُ بِهِ. Don't you see truth is being abandoned and trampled upon? أَلَا تَرَوْنَ إِلَى الْبَاطِلِ لَا يُتَنَاهَى عَنْهُ. Look at falsehood. Falsehood is being embraced. لِيَرْغَبَ الْمُؤْمِنْ فِي لِقَاءِ اللَّهِ حَقًّا. In such circumstances, it behooves, not me as an Imam, it behooves any believer to make an uprising, to eliminate vice and to establish virtue. So the divine decree was not something that was imposed on the Imam. It was a decree whereby the Imam was given the option that the future of the Ummah depends on making a choice for sacrifice. Are you ready? Imam said, Ridana rid Ahlul Bayt ridallah. Yes. What is pleasing to God is most satisfying for us. That was a conscious, willful, deliberate decision to give up one's life for the sake of godly values. That is not self-destruction. That is self-preservation on a long-term basis. And this reality was even shared by the hero in Karbala whom we wish to recall today. That is Habib. We're told that Habib was an old man. Some narrations place him between 70 to 75 to 80. He was based in Kufa. He was a companion of the Holy Prophet, a companion of the first Holy Imam, migrated and settled in Kufa with the Imam. Obviously, he was a companion of Imam Hassan and, and Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He had already been informed about the outcome. There is a narration, if you put aside the question of authenticity, the message of that narration is not difficult to accept. Two companions of Imam Ali in the streets of Kufa discuss with each other. One says, I can see a man who will be lynched, and that's referring to Maytham Tammar. And Maytham replies, I can see a man red-faced who shall be killed in the way of God, and his head will be chopped off and it will be brought back to Kufa. The people who are around there, they said, we haven't met two people who are more bigger liars than these two. And yet a third one came and said, I think Maytham forgot one detail. When the head will be chopped off, it will be brought back to Kufa, and it will be rewarded with 100 dirhams more than all the other heads that were chopped off. The people said, wow, this third one is the biggest liar of all them all. Ilmul Ghaib was even shared with the companions who were close to the Imams. I wish to explore this reality a little further. We're told in history that Habib was directly involved in the mobilization of companions in support of Imam Hussein in Kufa. When they came to know about Imam's departure to Mecca and his plan now to make an uprising against Yazid, they began to mobilize people in Kufa. One of the first letters expressing support for Imam Hussein was in fact signed by Habib. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This is a letter to Hussein, son of Ali, from Sulaiman 1, from Musayyab 2, from Rafa'a 3, from Habib 4. One of the foremost companions who expressed their support. And of course the letter says, this is from the people of Kufa. We praise Allah that Allah has eliminated this tyrant despot, referring to Muawiyah, who had imposed himself on the Ummah, who usurped their rights, who killed the virtuous people amongst them, and who supported the evil and the corrupt in the society, who took wealth of the people, Baytul Mal, as if it was his own treasury. إنه ليس علينا إمام. We need a leader. There's a vacuum. فأقبل. We are ready to express our support. Habib, therefore, was one of the first people who enlisted support for the Imam. When Muslim ibn Aqil came to Kufa, he belonged to the tribe of Bani Asad. Him and Muslim bin Awsaja, Asadi, both of them were close to Muslim ibn Aqil. In fact, it is said that Muslim ibn Awsaja was his treasurer. He was the one who was collecting the funds. He was the one who was procuring the arms. He's the one who was his special wakil of Muslim ibn Aqil, Asadi. Habib ibn al-Zahir was active in mobilization of the people. However, when Ibn Ziyad came to Kufa, things suddenly changed. People were bought off. Silence was ensured. Some people were deliberately killed. Terror was inflicted into the hearts of the people. Suddenly, supporters began to disappear. So either the close companions became arrested and killed, or arrested and imprisoned. In such circumstances, we are told Habib went into hiding. Muslim ibn Awsaja went into hiding. It's either arrest and imprisonment or arrest and assassination. You go for survival. Unfortunately, they had to give up Muslim ibn Aqil. But they preserved themselves for a bigger day. And therefore, we find, like the young man reminded us, that there was a letter that was sent by Imam Hussein alayhi salam. من الحسين ibn Ali alayhi salam إلى الرجل الفقيه. This is a specific invitation to a man whose understanding of religion is in depth. That's the description Imam gives of Habib. Ya Habib, تعلم قربتنا من رسول الله. You know our specific station of closeness to the Holy Prophet. And we know you to be a brave man. أنت ذو شيمة وغيرة. You're brave and you're bold. فلا تبخل علينا نفسك. Don't confine yourself to yourself. Come out, contribute, share. Come and join us. يجازيك جدي رسول الله يوم القيامة. Allah will reward you. The Prophet will reward you on the day of judgment. That's the letter of invitation. I would just like to remind ourselves, the invitation that Imam sends out is according to this ayah in Surah Anfal chapter 8, ayah number 25, where Allah says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, istajibu lillahi walirrasuli idha da'akum lima yuhyikum. O people who believe, when God invites you, when the Prophet invites you, and in this case the son of the Prophet, who is a continuation of the same purpose, when they invite you, then respond. You know why? Because if you respond to that invitation, you gain a new life. Listen, you're not a plant that just sits on the ground and takes food and grows and becomes fat and enjoys life. Nourishment should not be the purpose of your life. You're not an animal who has got desires, who just follows desires. Oh, it's my freedom. This is how I feel, and therefore I want to do it. You're just an animal. Istajibu, respond to that call. Lima yuhyikum. You'll get a new life, a life of a human being whose intellect is in total obedience to the super wisdom of the Master of the universe. That's the life you should aim for. Habib, come over. You are going to die, but in death is your life. Habib responds immediately. Him and Muslim ibn Awsaja maneuver. Remember, there's a terror reigning over Kufa. They maneuvered themselves out stealthily in the darkness of the night, and they managed to reach Karbala around the 7th or the 8th of Muharram. But Habib is so close to the Imam. We're told overall in charge of the security of the camps was in the hands of Abbas. But the doorkeeper of the camp, of the tent of Imam, was Habib. No one or anyone who wanted to visit Imam had to be checked personally by Habib. He was that close to the Imam, such a confidant. On the night preceding Ashura, we're told that Habib, who belonged to the tribe of Bani Asad, suggested to the Imam that I've got tribesmen just nearby Karbala, the Bani Asad. Allow me to go and enlist support from them. I would like to quote that small invitation that Habib gives. Imam grants him the permission. Habib goes to the people of Bani Asad. He says, listen, I have a proposal. My proposal is, I'm going to tell you about a party of God. And that party of God has a problem. And my proposal is, we want your participation. If you participate, then we promise you prestige in the dunya and prosperity in the akhirah. That's the summary of his presentation. Proposal. My people, I've come to you with the best news that any brother can bring to their community. أتيتكم أدعوكم إلى نصر ابن بنت نبيكم. I have come to you to seek and solicit your support and your sacrifice for the son of the daughter of your prophet. That's my proposal. فإنه في عصابة من المؤمنين. He's with a party of believers. The party of godly believers is one where one of them is equivalent to 1,000 of the others. Ajib, if you're not a plant, and if you're not an animal, and if you're a human being because you are a person whose intellect has responded to the call of the master of the universe, one of you is better than 1,000 of the others. The others are just garbage. وهذا عمر بن سعد قد أحاط به. We got a problem. Umar ibn Sa'ad, the devil's follower, has surrounded us. Let me warn you, let me remind you. If you come and support, there is sharaf of the dunya and of the akhirah. That speech was so moving that it said almost 90 to 100 young men responded, yes, we're ready to come. They came out. Oh, there was one treacherous spy amongst them. One Bani Asad member, just one, turned out to that drop of poison which spoiled the whole cup. He went and reported to Umar Sa'ad. Umar Sa'ad sent a contingent of 400 people, and there was a fierce battle between these 100 supporters, potential supporters, and the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad. Bani Asad had to withdraw. Habib came back disappointed. Imam says, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Whatever is God's will, we accept. Habib continued his active participation in Karbala. On the eve of Ashura, we all know when Imam offered them the option, you can all leave if you want. It's my blood that they want. Nothing is recorded from Habib, but we are sure that his ideas were the same. His compatriot from the same Bani Asad family, Muslim ibn Awsaja, is reported to have declared, I swear by God, God should never show us the day when we will be alive and you shall be killed. He's telling Imam Hussein. I swear by God, I will defend you with the sword, if I can't with the spear, if I can't with the stone, if I can't with my body. And that was the same sentiment that was shared by all, including Habib. On the day of Ashura, he was so important that Imam made him the commander of the left contingent. Zuhair ibn Qayn of the right contingent, and the flag was in the hand of Abbas in the center. They continued to fight up until the time of Dhuhr, according to one narration. After prayers, though Imam gave a sermon before the prayers, before even the battle began, and Habib again participated. Remember, Habib was close to the Imam. Let me explain to you, he tells the people of Kufa. Before even we begin the battle, don't attempt to kill me. Understand the situation. If you don't know me, let me tell you, I'm the son of the daughter of the Prophet. You know my father. You know my father's uncle Hamza, he was Sayyidu Shuhada. You know my uncle Jaffer al-Tayyar, who was killed in the Battle of Mu'tah. Well, you know the Prophet's tradition about me, that Al-Hasan wal-Husayn, Sayyida Shababi Ahl al-Jannah. You don't trust me, you don't believe me. Oh well, go and ask Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari. Go and ask Abu Sa'id al-Khidri. Go and ask Sahl ibn Sa'idi. And he listed several companions. Go and ask them. At this point, Imam is building up his logical case to waken up people. At this point, Shimr says, oh, don't listen to this man. إِنَّهُ يَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ عَلَى حَرْفٍ. He's just, this is a metaphor that appears in the Quran. Oh, he's so weak in his worship of God. Oh, he's wasting our time. We don't even understand. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. Imam sits quiet, but Habib immediately defends. Habib is quoted to say, oh no, Ya'budullaha ala harfin. Surely Hussein knows what he's saying. Inni la araka ta'budullaha ala sab'ina harf. You are the one who is 70 times weaker in your worship of God. There's an interesting ayah in the Quran which describes this. Allow me to just quickly quote it. Surah Hajj, chapter 22, ayah number 11. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ عَلَى حَرْفٍ. There are some who are weak in their faith. They only worship God if it's convenient. The moment they're under stress, they forget God. Not only they forget God, they abandon religion. The confrontation that took place on Karbala was between these two mental attitudes. Who is well established and firm and committed to the cause of truth, and who is wishy-washy. And this conversation that took place between Habib is a reflection of that reality. Oh, Imam of course knows what he says, but you don't understand what he says because God has blinded your heart, because you followed your desires, because you rejected the invitation to the truth, because you ignored the call of the Prophet, because you did not want to understand what the Quran says. All these invitations come toward perfection. You ignored them. As a result, God has turned you blind. Of course, now you don't understand what the Imam is trying to say. Incidentally, Habib could afford to engage in this sort of discussion because we're told Habib was a qari of the Quran. No, he was a hafiz of the Quran. The whole of the Quran was in his hands. He used to recite the whole of the Quran oftentimes. Finally, around Zuhr time, he does proceed to the battlefield. Unfortunately, the history doesn't record a lot about him, what exactly he said in the battlefield. But there's one battle cry that's ascribed to him. Ana Habibu ibn Mudahhar. I am Habib, son of Mudahhar. Farisun hayja'a wa harbun tas'ur. I've got all flames of fire of the war around me, but I'm a brave soldier. It seems it's a battle cry where you introduce yourself and you declare your motto. We don't know much, but we are told there was a fierce battle. The importance of Habib is the reports that we receive after the battle. Why is it that this head was so important? That there was a fight between the army of Omar Assad. Who gets the prize of the head? Who gets the highest reward? This is not an ordinary head. This man was a close companion of the Prophet, of Imam Ali, of Imam Hassan, of Imam Hussein. Imam wanted him to be close. He knew the Quran fully. He was the first one who responded to the Imam. He rushed to the Imam. He was the personal security guard of the Imam. He was no ordinary person. He was one of the most hunted prizes by the enemy of God. Would you then be surprised that when he fell and he got that deadly blow, he falls to the ground? He's an old man. You're talking about a 70-year-old man, an 80-year-old man. He tries to rise up. Another deadly blow on his head. He collapses. It's too late for the Imam to come to him. But one of the reporters tells the narrator of the maqtal, he says, لما قتل حبيب, when Habib fell and when he was killed, حد ذلك حسينا, Hussein was shaken, Salamullah alayh. And he spoke two words. He said, أحتسب نفسي حماة أصحابي. I swear by God, I have only one place to take my complaint. This man was virtuous, this man was devoted, this man was dedicated to the cause of God, and he fought. He fought at the age of 80 for the sake of God. The only place where I have to go and present my complaint is before Allah. Assalamu alayk ya Aba Abdullah wa ala al-arwah allati hallat bifina'ik wa anakhat birahlik. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Before we start this discussion, because we hope to remind ourselves of certain realities whereby we hope to achieve some goodness and some guidance, and hence some perfection, we need to realize that this journey toward perfection definitely will have certain distractions and obstructions, mainly so from the insinuations of Shaitan, who out of his arrogance and defiance has vowed to obstruct any progress toward perfection. And so we seek the protection of God's love and power and mercy from Shaitan's whispers and insinuations. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Having dealt with the potential obstruction, we seek the help of Allah then to achieve any goodness or guidance because of three reasons. Number one, He's the all-perfect being and therefore the originator and the source of all perfection, though it may reach us after passing through a variety of mediums and intermediaries. And secondly, we seek His help and His guidance because He is Rahman. He manifests His Rahmah. He projects His love. He issues forth His grace, which reaches out to each and every entity in the universe, brings it into existence as a sign of His power and love and mercy, provides it with all that is necessary for its sustenance and its maintenance, and then also gradually develops it toward its perfection. And thirdly, we seek His help and guidance because He is Rahim. Not only does He provide continuous care and attention and love toward each of us, but He has promised abundant love, extra mercy, continuous grace to those amongst us who believe in him, who admit to his existence, and then who submit to his will. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين. We send our salutations and greetings and expressions of love and loyalty to the Holy Prophet of Islam, that most perfect man who managed to reach the highest pinnacle of perfection possible for any human being, for two reasons. Number one, his comprehension of who God is, of what God's perfect attributes and qualities are, his infinite power and majesty, his unlimited love, grace, and compassion, his progressive and unlimited knowledge, and moment by moment, his governing of the universe. The Prophet's understanding of God was the maximum possible for any human being. And secondly, this comprehension then translated itself in such a way that in all aspects of his life, be it personal, be it public, be it mental, be it emotional, be it physical, be it in his cultural life, political life, social life, in all dimensions of his life, at every moment he was the most humble and the most submissive to the will of God. And we send our salutations and greetings on the holy progeny, who are almost his equivalents, but definitely secondary to him. And especially so on the third holy Imam, who was afforded the opportunity to offer this supreme sacrifice of establishing godly values on the earth, a movement which then became a supreme role model and a source of inspiration for all movements till the final global revolution to establish justice on the earth. Elders in Islam, brethren in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. In our discussion about the importance of lamentation and weeping and participation and commemoration in such assemblies, we said that there's a tremendous reward promised. And the explanation we gave was that this reward is predicated on the fact that we try to identify those virtues and those values, those godly values in this movement, try to imbibe them and integrate them in our lives. In order to enable us to carry out this process, allow me to expand on the question that I raised in the previous session about the stated motives of this movement. If this movement is to become a role model for us, we need to understand why did it happen. One recurrent, repetitive reason, which Imam himself declared at various stages, was the fact that it was a divine decree. It was divinely designed and planned and organized, and I accepted it. And we try to offer an explanation of what that means. In further elaboration of that, let me quote yet another example of the same theme. In memory of the heroes whom we are going to commemorate tonight, Aun and Muhammad, sons of Abdullah bin Jaffer bin Abi Talib. Abdullah bin Jaffer, when he came to know about Imam's intentions to make this uprising, wrote a message to him which says, Ana mushfiqun alayk, I sympathize and I'm concerned about you, about your safety. فإنه يكون فيه هلاكك واستئصال أهل بيتك. I fear the end result of this movement that you have begun is destruction and elimination, not only of you but of your whole family. And I'm concerned. I'm concerned because in halakta al-yawm, if you are eliminated, أطفئ نور الأرض, the light that illuminates the earth will be wiped out. فإنك علم المهتدين ورجاء المؤمنين. We believe you that you hold this high pedestal, that you are the leader of all the guided ones. You are the hope for the believers. If you are eliminated, we will be without a leader. فلا تعجل بالسير. Don't haste, don't make hurry. فإني في إثر كتابي. I am preparing, I want to come and join you. Well, let's discuss. Imam's response, the recurrent theme, the response that he gives to Abdullah bin Abbas, the response he gives to Abdullah bin Umar, the response he gives to Abdullah bin Jaffer, the Ibadullah, all of them. Those, the elders of the community, the prominent companions of the Prophet, all of them advised him, consulted him, warned him, don't. And yet his recurrent response is one, لو كنت في جحر في جحر هامة من هوام الأرض, even if I took refuge in a hiding place of an animal inside the earth, لاستخرجوني, they would fish me out. وَلَقَتَلُونِي, and they would kill me. Death is certain for me. There's no escape. And besides, رَأَيْتُ فِي مَنَامِي, I've already seen a dream and a vision. I met the Prophet and the Prophet told me, أَمَرَنِي بِأَمْرٍ لَا بُدَّ أَنْ أَنْتَهِيَ إِلَيْهِ. There is a plan and that plan has to be executed and I have to proceed. So one of the motives was the execution of the divine plan. And Imam Hussein did it in total resignation to that will of God. But not a passive, inactive, senseless, mechanical resignation. No. It was an active, responsible, conscious, deliberately decided resignation to the will of God with total approval and satisfaction. Observe how. As I tried to explain yesterday, God is constantly in the process of selecting individuals to become instruments and agents to advance his cause and plan toward creating local and global justice on the earth. He's in the constant process of doing that. So for example, observe in Surah Anfal, the war spoils, chapter 8, ayah number 8 onwards is the description of a battle where the Muslims initially reluctantly participated. The Battle of Badr, there was ghanima and spoils to be obtained. Observe the ayah, chapter 8. وَإِذْ يَعِدُكُمُ اللَّهُ إِحْدَى الطَّائِفَتَيْنِ. Recall the time when God promised you that you will gain the spoils. And so you came out because there was malut tijara. أَنَّهَا لَكُمْ وَتَوَدُّونَ أَنَّ غَيْرَ ذَاتِ الشَّوْكَةِ تَكُونُ لَكُمْ. And you came out longing for that wealth. وَيُرِيدُ اللَّهُ أَن يُحِقَّ الْحَقَّ بِكَلِمَاتِهِ. But God's plan is much higher. God wanted to pull you out of your homes with that attraction, but once you came there, you were suddenly exposed in a battlefield. But because you were determined, because you believed, because you were steadfast, because you were persevering, God helped you. God made you victorious. And toward the end, ayah number 17, Allah says, فَلَمْ تَقْتُلُوهُمْ. You were victorious in the battle of Badr, and you killed so many of them. But beware. Let me educate you. Let me tell you about the divine plan. فَلَمْ تَقْتُلُوهُمْ. You did not kill them. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ قَتَلَهُمْ. Allah killed them. You were an agent. You were an instrument. وَمَا رَمَيْتَ إِذْ رَمَيْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ رَمَى. You did not throw the stones and the sword and the spear. You did not make the intifada of Badr. Oh, Badr was a situation where they were almost like intifada. They didn't have the equipment, they didn't have the numbers, they were hungry, they were poorly equipped. They just had stones, some of them. The stones and the spears and the swords that you threw. Allah did that. You were instruments. You were agents. The conscious, deliberate decision to accept the will of God, that is the resignation that Imam declares as a main motive for the movement of Karbala. Two, not only was there resignation, but Imam also declares one of the motives was resistance, refusal to pay allegiance. Right from the moment when he's invited to the house of, to the palace of Walid, he says, I belong to this family of purity and perfection. Yazid is from a lifestyle of sin and rebellion. وَمِثْلِي لَا يُبَايِعْ مِثْلَهُ. And the likes of me will therefore never, ever subjugate themselves and pay allegiance to such a man. One. Two, the same theme of refusal and resistance is repeated again and again. On the day of Ashura, he tells the people of Kufa, the battle has not begun. Understand very clearly who I am. Recognize my relationship with the Holy Prophet. Go back. Let's not engage in battle. And when they refuse, Imam makes his final conclusion. Wallahi la u'tikum biyadi i'ta' al-dhalil. وَلَا أُقِرُّ إِقْرَارَ الْعَبِيدِ. I swear I will never ever bow down as a lowly, humiliated, disgraced person. Never. Resistance, refusal. That's one of the first sermons, but perhaps the pinnacle of the statement of refusal and resistance of Imam Hussein is again on the day of Ashura, in perhaps the second or the third khutbah that he gives on the day of Ashura, where somewhere towards the end he says, أَلَا وَإِنَّ الدَّعِي يَبْنَ الدَّعِي قَدْ رَكَزَ مِنَّا بَيْنَ اثْنَتَيْنِ بَيْنَ السِّلَّةِ وَالذِّلَّةِ وَهَيْهَاتَ مِنَّ الذِّلَّةِ. Hayhat. Oh, I swear this bastard, son of a bastard, incidentally, legally, a bastard is an illegitimate son. This illegitimate son of an illegitimate son has challenged me, either subjugate yourself to me or be killed. Well, tell him I will never humiliate myself. Hayhata minna dhillah. Why? Ya aballahu dhalika lana. One, Allah refuses that from me. Wa rasuluhu. The Prophet's instructions and guidance are that. Wa hujurun tabat wa tahurat. I was trained in a lap that taught me purity, that taught me dignity, that taught me perfection. And I will never humiliate myself. وَحُجُورٌ طَابَتْ وَطَهُرَتْ وَأُنُوفٌ حَمِيَّةٌ وَنُفُوسٌ أَبِيَّةٌ مِنْ أَن نُؤْثِرَ طَاعَةَ اللِّئَامِ عَلَى مَصَارِعِ الْكِرَامِ. Death with dignity, therefore, is preferable to life with humiliation. Not only did Imam Hussein illustrate and display resignation willfully to the will of God, but there was also refusal and resistance. Furthermore, Karbala has a third dimension. Not only is there resignation, not only is there resistance and refusal, there is this desire to reformation. As I mentioned before, one of the first statements he makes right in Medina, my movement is not for the purpose of seeking power, is not for the purpose of creating corruption or chaos. إنما خرجت لطلب الإصلاح في أمة جدي. I want to bring about reformation. I want to change the corruption. Even that khutbah, after he left Medina and reached Mecca, he repeats the same message, that the purpose is not only resignation to the will of God and not only resistance and refusal, it is also reformation. In Mina, that long sermon 2 years before the death of Muawiyah, toward the end of that sermon addressed to almost 1,000 people, he reiterates this particular motive. Allahumma innaka ta'lamu annahu lam yakun alladhi ma kana minna munafasatan fi sultan wala iltimasa shay'in min fudul al-hutam. O Lord, you know very clearly that the very purpose of this uprising, of this educating the people about the purpose, I don't seek power for the sake of power. I don't want power for prestige. I don't want power for pleasure. I don't want power for profit. I seek power for the sake of purity, for the sake of establishing virtue and godly values. وَلَكِنْ لِنُرِيَ الْمَعَالِمَ مِنْ دِينِكَ. Power for the sake of pillars of religion to be established. Power وَنُظْهِرَ الْإِصْلَاحِ فِي بِلَادِكَ. We want to spread reformation in all dimensions of life, in all cities of the land. And number 3, وَيَأْمَنَ الْمَظْلُومُونَ مِنْ عِبَادِكَ. Power for purity, power for the pillars of religion, power for the poor, to help the poor. وَيُعْمَلُ بِفَرَائِضِكَ وَسُنَّتِكَ وَأَحْكَامِكَ. And I want to establish the godly laws. Karbala therefore teaches us not only the deliberate decision of resignation to the will of God, it teaches us not only the refusal and the resistance against a life of humiliation and indignity, it not only teaches us the lesson of reformation and fighting against corruption and the purpose of establishing justice and virtue and godly values. No, there is a sense of revolution. Reformation is a process whereby you want to bring about a change, but gradually. Revolution, you want to bring about a change almost swiftly. The power changes, leadership changes. At certain stages of the movement, Imam Hussein seems to have made statements which suggest that he did expect power to change. Apparently, of course. The end result was clear for him. But apparently it did seem at certain stages that a revolution was possible. Observe. After his departure from Mecca, on his way to Kufa, having received the invitation from almost 18,000 supporters. Later, when he's intercepted by Hor, in those stages, he does make one statement indicative of his hope of a revolution. Again, after arriving in Karbala, he still hopes for a change in leadership. Observe. وَلَعَمْرِي, and I swear by God, مَا الْإِمَامُ إِلَّا الْعَامِلُ بِالْكِتَابِ. Let me tell you who's a true leader. A true leader is one who knows the book of God, the law of God, and he knows how to interpret it properly, and he knows how to implement and execute it in society, establish the values of godly laws. 1. 2. وَلَعَمْرِ مَا الْإِمَامُ إِلَّا الْعَامِلُ بِالْكِتَابِ الْآخِذُ بِالْقِسْطِ. He fights for justice. He demands justice. He struggles for justice. الْآخِذُ بِالْقِسْطِ. Surah Hadid, chapter 57, ayah number 25. The purpose of establishing justice is ascribed to all prophets. There's not a single prophet but that he was sent with this purpose. Ayah number 25. وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلَنَا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ. And we send our prophets with clear proofs. Anybody with a normal intelligence can understand that this is extraordinary power. It's a miracle. We send very clear proofs with our prophets. وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلَنَا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ وَأَنزَلْنَا مَعَهُمْ الْكِتَابِ. And then later we sent with them a codified book of laws and guidance. وَالْمِيزَانِ, and a criterion to help them differentiate between truth and falsehood. Why? لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ. The purpose is so that by enacting and implementing the laws of God, they can establish justice. لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ. And in order to help them, we sent down iron. Iron as a symbol of power. Justice is not going to be established passively. You have to demand for it. You have to fight for it. Revolution is one of the themes Imam Hussein reiterates during his movement. Or, for example, in Karbala, before the day of Ashura, between that period of stay between the 2nd of Muharram and the day of Ashura, on one occasion, he reads out this sermon, which again gives an idea of his revolutionary ideals. The same letters that were sent to him by Sulaiman ibn Surad Khuza'i in Kufa, and Musayyab and Rufa'a and Abdullah bin Wal, now he's responding to them. He says, let me remind you, have you not heard this hadith of the Prophet, where he says, Man ra'a sultanan ja'iran, whoever sees a ruler who is despotic, mustahillan li hurumillah or li haramillah, whatever is haram of God, oh, he's not even bothered. He just tramples the laws of God. He's despotic, one. Is disobedient, two. Mukhalifan li sunnati rasulillah. He knows the practice of the Prophet and yet he rejects it. Three. Ya'malu fi ibadillahi bil ithmi wal udwan. He's a transgressor. He's an oppressor. He's oppressive to his people. Four. Having seen such a ruler, living in such a society, then if a person, the Prophet said, then if a person, ثُمَّ لَمْ يُغَيِّرْ عَلَيْهِ بِقَوْلٍ وَلَا بِفِعْلٍ كَانَ حَقًّا عَلَى اللَّهِ أَنْ يُدْخِلَهُ مُدْخَلَهُ. Then if you don't respond, then if you sit quiet, if you're silent, if you're indifferent, if you're not bothered, if you're unconcerned, then it behooves on God that he should send you to the same end result that he would send that despot to. No despot can survive without the silent majority. Imam Hussein taught us not only resignation to the will of God willfully, deliberately, consciously. Not only did he teach us refusal and resistance to a life of humiliation. Not only did he teach us reformation under circumstances to establish godly values. He even encouraged revolution. No. Imam Hussein's message has got one universal element. That movement, in fact, was universalized and globalized. No, it was eternalized. It transcended the limits of time and space, and therefore it became the role model for all times to come. Observe how. We believe that the struggle between truth and falsehood is a struggle that began with the arrival of Adam and will culminate with the establishment of global justice. In that whole course of history, Karbala now becomes a supreme role model. How? Observe in Surah Baqarah, Allah says when Adam was sent down to the earth, اهبطوا منها, go down to the earth, بعضكم لبعض عدو. Some of you are enemies to the others. The devilish, satanic forces are in opposition to the godly, divine forces. A struggle began right from that time. It has gradually developed and spread and intensified till it reaches the level we see today. In the Quran, for example, in Surah Tawbah, chapter 9, ayah number 33. Allah talks about the plan for the future. هُوَ الَّذِي أَرْسَلَ رَسُولَهُ بِالْهُدَى. He's the one who sent the guidance which will ensure salvation. هُوَ الَّذِي أَرْسَلَ رَسُولَهُ بِالْهُدَى وَدِينِ الْحَقِّ لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْمُشْرِكُونَ. And the final end result is that truth will be established throughout the earth. That's the end result. That was the beginning. In between, we are told that there is an ongoing process of struggle. Chapter 3, ayah number 146. وَكَأَيٍّ مِّن نَبِيٍّ قَاتَلَ مَعَهُ رِبِّيُّونَ كَثِيرٌ. So many prophets, almost all prophets who came, they always had to struggle and to fight. And with them there were a select number of companions. فَمَا وَهَنُوا لِمَا أَصَابَهُمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَمَا ضَعُفُوا وَمَا اسْتَكَانُوا وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الصَّابِرِينَ. They did not falter, they did not fear, they did not experience, they did not flinch. They struggled firmly, steadfastly. They were determined. Wallahu yuhibbu sabirin. Allah has created the universe in such a way that He loves those who persevere. He loves, meaning that the universe has been created in such a way that the laws are designed to support and to help and to grant victory to those who are steadfast, to those who sacrifice, to those who struggle. In Allah yuhibbu sabirin. A struggle began. A struggle continued all the time, and a struggle is to culminate in this course of history. Imam Hussein's movement then becomes a role model. Not only does it teach us resignation willfully to the plan of God, to enable us to become agents and instruments in the execution of God's plan, not only does it teach us refusal and resistance to humiliation, not only does it teach us reformation and struggle to establish godly values, not only does it encourage us in revolution, but it is a process of a relentless struggle which is happening even today. Even now, we're being challenged. Surah Ali Imran, chapter 3, ayah number 179, Allah says, وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيَذَرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ عَلَى مَا أَنْتُمْ عَلَيْهِ حَتَّى يَمِيزَ الْخَبِيثِ مِنَ الطَّيِّبِ. Allah will not leave a group of people who claim that they are believers, that they are followers of the truth, that we love Hussein, but that He will test them in order to sort out, in order to select, in order to sift out who is the khabith and who is the tayyib, who is the selected and who is the rejected, who is the wanted and who is the unwanted, who is the virtuous and who is the wicked. It's an ongoing process even today, up until the end of time. I would like to quote a few examples of the response to this process of selection and sorting that is happening all the time. Again, taking inspiration with illustrations from the Battle of Karbala itself. We have already seen the examples of people like Hur, who came out in active opposition to Imam, but finally converted and reverted. We saw the example of Zuhair, who was in the opposition camp, but not in active opposition. He converted. We saw the example of the active supporters like Habib, who actively supported Muslim ibn Aqil, and then when they were in danger, they went into hiding and somehow managed to reach in Karbala and sacrifice themselves. But there are other cases where the support has been slow, it hasn't been swift, it hasn't been strong. Take the example of a person known as Ubaidullah bin Hur al-Ju'fi. Recall the incident where Zuhair was traveling from Hajj back from Mecca back to Kufa, and then they meet at a point and Imam Hussein sends for him, and then that conversion takes place. A similar incident occurs with Ubaidullah bin Hur al-Ju'fi, but the response is different. Observe. Ubaidullah ibn Hur has got an interesting history. he did not support Imam Ali in the Battle of Siffin. In fact, at one point, he even abandoned and went over to Sham. And it was so late before he came back that his wife thought probably he's already dead, and she got married to another person. And then when he came back looking for her, he discovered she's in the betrothal of one person known as Ikrimah. He wanted her back, and he went to Imam Ali and he said, I want justice. Imam says, but you were never on our side, were you? So he says, well, are you going to mistreat me because I did not support you? The ayah in the Quran says that, وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا إِعْدِلُوا هُوَ أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى. Let not enmity and hatred influence your decision to then not practice justice. Very difficult, very difficult. Imam, of course, brings the husband Ikrimah and he says, but the original husband is alive and therefore you'll have to release her. She was already pregnant. The pregnancy then was to be treated as a case where there's a mistaken identity once the child is born, and then the woman reverts back to the original husband. This historical background is important because Imam brings it to his attention. When they arrived at a place known as Qasr Muqatil between Mecca and Karbala, Imam sends for Ubaidullah bin Hur al-Ju'fi. He sends a member of his own tribe, Masruq bin Hajjaj al-Ju'fi. Masruq was the mu'adhin who gave the adhan in Karbala. He was a supporter of Imam Hussein. Masruq goes to his tribesmen. He says, I have brought some news to you that if you accept, there is honor and prestige for you for the rest of your life. And Ubaidullah says, and what is that news? He says, Hussein, the son of Ali, is calling you. He is inviting you to come and support him. Ubaidullah says, you know, I left Kufa specifically because of this reason. I did not want to be in Kufa when Hussein, the son of Ali, comes there because I didn't want to support him. Kufa is derelict. All the Shias have been terrorized. They've all gone underground. And I left Kufa in order not to get embarrassed to support Imam Hussein. The messenger comes back. Imam doesn't leave him there. Imam stands up himself and with a few members of the family progresses and proceeds to the camp of Ubaidullah bin Hur al-Ju'fi. Amazing. A conversation takes place. He's very respectful. The moment Imam comes, he stands up and gives him his seat there. He respects him. Imam explains to him, it was the people of Kufa who called me. I'm surprised now Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad has come. He has terrorized the people. And now they've abandoned, they've even killed my cousin Muslim ibn Aqil and his followers. Ubaidullah, I've got an offer to make to you. You know, you've got a criminal past. According to some reports, he was also engaged in highway robbery. He was in the camp opposite Imam Ali. I've got a proposal. Why don't you join me? And I promise that God will forgive your past. You'll become a better person. I'm offering you a future, a life of eternity in bliss. Look at the response of this man. He says, Yabna Rasulillah, Yabna binti Rasulillah. If I knew you had supporters in Kufa and therefore there was any hope for victory, I would have come. But there is no victory in this battle. I'm paraphrasing. However, I don't want to abandon you. I respect you. I'm ready to support you. You see, I've got this horse, and this horse is so swift. I've never mounted this horse and chased an enemy, but that I've managed to reach that enemy and kill him. My horse is for you. I got this sword. It's so sharp. I swear I never used it to attack an enemy, but that I killed him. My sword is for you. Imam says, I'm not asking for possessions. I'm asking for your person. Yabna al-Hur, Ubaidullah ibn Hur al-Ju'fi, ما جئناك لفرسك وسيفك إنما أتيناك لنسألك النصرة. We want to save you, not the horse, not the sword. if you're going to hold back your nafs and you are failing to support us for whatever reason, let me warn you, the Prophet has said, you better make sure that you distance yourself so far away from me, because the Prophet has said, Man sami'a da'iyata ahli bayti. Whoever hears the call made by these righteous people of purity, of perfection, Ahlul Bayt, they call for support. وَلَمْ يَنْصُرْهُمْ عَلَى حَقِّهِمْ, and you know they're on the right path and you refuse to support them and help them, إِلَّا أَكَبَّهُ اللَّهُ عَلَى وَجْهِهِ فِي النَّارِ. Allah will end up, take him to the same end result as the despots and the tyrants and the oppressors. You better make sure you are not near our camp. The process of selection, of sorting out, of sifting, of the wanted from the unwanted, of the good from the vicious, of the virtuous from the wicked is an ongoing process. Question, what is my response today? Am I like Zuhair ibn Qayn, or like Hur, or like Habib bin Mazahir, or God forbid like Ubaidullah bin Hur al-Ju'fi? Let me give you yet another example of support. This was partial support. I give you my possessions. There's another one who went one step ahead. He gave the support not only of his possessions, but of his person, but a conditional one. There's a person known as Dahhak bin Abdullah al-Mishriqi. They meet Imam again on the way between Mecca and Kufa. And Imam invites him. In fact, he himself reports this, and there's a reason why he can manage to report it. He says, we met Imam, and we greeted him, and he asked us, what have you come for? This meeting took place in Karbala, sorry. So he says, we have come to say, hello, how do you do? We've come to greet you. We've come to pray for you. We've come to pray for your safety. So Imam says, and we brought some news for you. So what is the news? We've brought the news for you that Kufa has abandoned you. Imam already knew that. So Imam says, Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakil. God alone is sufficient for me. I've made my decision to make an uprising, come what may. Just like what the Prophet did. La tukallaf illa nafsak. O Prophet, if a time comes when the truth has to be defended and there's not a single supporter, you alone must make the uprising. This is the son of the daughter of that Prophet. I've made a decision. I will make an uprising. I will defend the truth, even if there is no supporter. Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakil. I entrust all my affairs to God and God alone. And He's the best power to whom you can entrust your affairs, because He knows how to conduct affairs, because He has the power to conduct affairs in the best way, because He loves us more than we do ourselves, and therefore can achieve that in an efficient way. Ni'mal wakil. He's the best wakil. I'm not worried. So we greeted him and we prayed for him. So Imam says, but what is stopping you from joining me and supporting me and fighting in the cause of truth? You know, we've got debts and we've got a family to take care of. And however, I'm ready to support you on one condition. I will join you, I will be with you, I will fight with you so long as you have combatants and you have fighters with you. But allow me to go away should a time come when I see that there are no chances for victory. And Imam says, I grant you that request, join me. This is in the initial days after the arrival in Karbala. On the day of Ashura, this Dahhak bin Abdullah al-Mashriqi himself reports to us what happened. He says a time came when one after another the companions fell in the battlefield. A time came when there were very few companions remaining. I went to the Imam and I reminded him about that condition and that contract and that agreement that we had made. And I told him that you recall that you agreed to the terms. And Imam says, Sadaqt, you're right, I did say so. You're free to go, but I'm surprised. How will you manage to escape? كيف لك بالنجاة? How can you escape? The enemy has surrounded us, and besides, the enemy has even killed all our horses. And Dhahak says, well, I've made arrangements. You see, between the camps, I had one horse extra. I hid him there. Amazing. You are in the company of a person who had the power to influence and to convert a person like Zuhair, who belonged to the opposite camp, and bring a transformation in his heart and bring him towards a life of eternal bliss. Zuhair changed. No, a person who was an active opposition like Hur managed to change. Yet this man was in the camp and asked to leave on the last moment. He himself reports, I sat on the mount, I negotiated, I ran between the army. 15 members came and chased me. We ran till we reached a nearby village known as Shufayya. They caught over me and they arrested me. I looked around and I said, oh, you remember? I'm your friend. We belong to the same family. And 3 of them said, yes, we know him. He's our friend. And the other 3 also said, yes, let's accept him. And the remaining 15 accept him. Najjani Allah. I swear God saved me. Amazing. Human beings can be trapped in their vision to the lowly pleasures of the world and the attachments to such an extent that they become blind to the potential for eternal bliss when it's offered to them. However, the heroes we want to discuss today, if you compare and contrast, they stand out differently. They were young men. Aoun, son of Abdullah, ibn Jaffer al-Tayyar, and Muhammad, son of Abdullah bin Jaffer al-Tayyar. Unfortunately, we don't have much details about them. However, we can try to reconstruct some of the events. One of the battle cries they give on the battlefield, Aoun, when he proceeds to the battle, he says, In tunkiruni fa ana ibn Ja'far. If you don't know me, let me introduce myself. I'm the son of Ja'far. His grandfather was Ja'far. Shaheedu sidqin fi jinani Azhar. He was that righteous martyr who gave up his life in the battle of Mu'tah. He gave up his life and now he's in Jannah, as the Prophet promised. يَطِيرُ فِيهَا بِالْجَنَاحِ أَخْضَرٍ. And he has been granted by God's grace a reward of being given wings. Wings is a metaphorical way of saying that there is an ability and a power and a faculty that is granted to a human, just like birds have wings and there are instruments in the bird's hands. So the humans develop wings. It's a metaphorical way of saying that once you enter that higher level of existence, Allah grants you that extra faculty and that extra power to be able to prosecute and execute so many things in Jannah. That is my grandfather. If you don't know me, I'm the son of that Ja'far. The Ja'far who is in Jannah. The one in Jannah who occupies that high station. كَفَى بِذَلِكَ شَرَفًا مِنْ مَشْعَرٍ. And that is enough prestige for a person. A young man who takes pride in having identified a role model who is his grandfather, who understood what the truth is, who accepted it, who committed himself to live according to it and to die for it. And he expressed it on the Battle of Karbala. And he fought till he fell. And then his younger brother, Muhammad bin Abdullah bin Ja'far al-Tayyar, proceeds. Ashku ilallahi min udwani. Oh, let me tell you the problem with you people. I have got only one complaint, and I'm going to complain to God of your transgression. Ashku ilallahi min al-udwani fi'ala qawmin fir rida umyani. To me, You people, be you elders, be you middle-aged, be you youngsters, to me, you are a people who, because of sins, have fallen into blindness. You fail to see the truth. قد بدلوا معالم القرآن ومحكم التنزيل والتبيان. The message of the Quran is very clear, yet you people have misinterpreted it and you have forgotten the truth. And they fought till they fell. History is quiet. What happens after that? But we can try to speculate, we can try to reconstruct the possible effect that the killing of these young, brave, dedicated, devoted, conscious soldiers was. If Imam Hussein could come to the deathbed of Habib, if he could come to the deathbed of Zuhair, and if he could cry, Imam Hussein, and say, "Oh Allah, grant your special mercy to these people. Oh Allah, deny your mercy on the enemies." It is not difficult to imagine that the same response would have been experienced and expressed by Imam for these two youngsters. It's not difficult to imagine that if Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when the others fell and he expressed his grief for a person like Habib, and he said, "Oh Lord, for your sake I endure and I persevere. Oh Lord, I am proud that I have people like this. Oh Lord, accept from us our contribution." Indeed, one of the biggest lessons we can learn from the sacrifice of these youngsters is that the ability to judge the truth and to understand it and to accept it and to live up to it and to die for it is possible even at a very young age. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك وأناخت برحلك عليكم منا جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقينا وبقي الليل والنهار والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Before we begin our discussion, because we hope to achieve at the end some goodness and some guidance, and this is a short journey toward perfection, we need to be aware that there would definitely be obstacles and obstruction on this path of progression toward perfection. Satan will definitely try to insinuate, to distract, and to obstruct this path of progression. So we seek the help of Allah, who is the all-knowing Lord, the all-powerful Lord, and the all-loving Lord. Therefore, definitely, if we earnestly and sincerely seek His help, He would provide it. Because He knows our problem. He knows He has the power to help us, and He's loving enough to want to help us. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We seek the help of Allah, having dealt with the potential obstruction, to then move forward and to achieve that perfection because of three reasons. We seek His help because He is Allah, the absolute perfect being, and therefore any perfection, any goodness, any guidance that we hope to achieve necessarily has to originate from Him and Him alone. Of course, it may reach us through a variety of mediums and levels. And the second reason we seek to ask for his help and guidance is because he is Rahman. His rahmah is universal, it's unlimited. His love, his care, his attention, his manifestation of his grace reaches out to each and every entity in the universe, brings it to existence, provides it with all that's necessary for its sustenance, for its maintenance, indeed, for the achievement of its perfection. And thirdly, we seek his help and his guidance because he is Rahim. He promises abundant love. You take one step, he promises 10 steps in reward. 10 steps? There are other verses in the Quran which talk about 700 steps. No, 1400 steps he can come forward. Some of the ayahs of the Quran mention essentially there is no limit to the grace that he can grant. He's that abundant in his love and in his grace. Because he is Rahim, therefore we ask for his help. Oh Lord, we're taking the first step. Please help us. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين. And we send our salutations, our greetings, our expression of love and loyalty to the Holy Prophet of Islam, who is the most perfect human being, who managed to reach the pinnacle of perfection, the maximum perfection possible for any human being. Because of two reasons. One, his understanding, his comprehension of who God is, his infinite attributes, his unlimited qualities, his continuous grace, his love, his mercy, his majesty, his authority, his power, his absolute control of the universe and governing of the universe in a manner of wisdom. His understanding was the maximum. And secondly, this understanding and comprehension translated itself in action in his life in such a way that in all dimensions of his life, be it personal, mental, emotional, behavioral, be it public, be it economic, be it cultural, be it political, in all phases of his life, he was the most humble, the most submissive, the most obedient to the will of God. And we send our salutations and greetings on his holy progeny, who were almost equivalent to him. Indeed, they were secondary to him. And especially so on the third holy Imam, for whose commemoration we have assembled here, whose supreme sacrifice created that role model of an uprising, of a movement which then became the source of inspiration for all future movements to establish justice and godly values on the earth. Elders in Islam, brethren in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Our holy Imams have urged us and instructed us to assemble and to commemorate the tragedy of Karbala. They've informed us that there is tremendous reward promised for it. The reward, as explained previously, is predicated and is dependent on us identifying the values, the virtues, those supreme human characteristics displayed in Karbala, identify them, imbibe them in ourselves, integrate them, and thereby transform our lives. We discussed some of the motives and the lessons we can derive from Karbala. We said Karbala does not only teach us that there should be resignation to the will of God to become an agent and an instrument in the advancement and the execution of the plan of God to establish perfection on the earth. 1. 2. Karbala teaches us, in addition, refusal and resistance to a life of humiliation. Number 3, Karbala teaches us reformation and the gradual transformation of society away from vice toward virtue. Number 4, indeed Karbala does even have indication of the necessity of a revolution And finally, Karbala should teach us that the struggle between truth and falsehood is an ongoing struggle. The process of the divine selection, of sifting, of sorting out the good from the bad, the virtuous from the vicious, the wanted from the unwanted, the selected from the rejected. It's an ongoing process even today. The big question we need to ask ourselves is, in the spectrum of responses to this process of selection, where do we stand? Are we the active, ardent supporters like Habib bin Madahir, who against all odds escaped from Kufa and managed to reach Karbala? Are we supporters like Zuhair ibn Qayn, who initially belonged to the opposition camp but did manage to revert and convert to the path of truth? Are we like Hur, who was in the state of active opposition to the Imam, yet he finally managed to revert and convert? Or no, are we like those weak supporters who are ready just to give their possessions but not their person? Or no, who are ready to give their person but temporarily? The Haq bin Abdullah al-Mishriqi, whom we mentioned in the previous session, indeed did fight on the day of Karbala, the day of Ashura in Karbala. And he did manage to kill. He himself reports, I killed two. And I paralyzed the third. And Imam kept on encouraging, Jazakallahu khayran. La tushallil. Don't stop. Continue. La tushallil. La qata'allahu yadak. May Allah support you. And yet, toward the end, he made his escape. Tonight's hero we wish to discuss is a young teenager, Qasim, son of Hassan. But in order to appreciate this young teenager's contribution, allow me to offer yet another contrast before we discuss his contribution. Indeed, we ought to remind ourselves of the fact that in the battles that took place in the Prophet's time, when the necessity for sacrificing one's possession and person in the way of God was declared by the Prophet, there were some who came to the Prophet and said, excuse me, but we cannot participate. We've got a problem. So for example, in Surah Ahzab, chapter 33, which discusses the battle of Ahzab in the beginning verses. In ayah number 13, Allah says, a group will come to you in the battle of Ahzab. وَيَسْتَأْذِنُ فَرِيقٌ مِّنْهُمْ النَّبِيَّ. They will come and seek permission for exemption from military participation. يَقُولُونَ إِنَّ بُيُوتَنَا عَوْرَةٌ. Our homes and households are exposed to danger. We cannot abandon it. وَمَا هِيَ بِعَوْرَةٍ. The reality is their homes are never exposed to danger. إِن يُرِيدُونَ إِلَّا فِرَارًا. They want to flee. They want to abandon their responsibility. They are presenting an excuse. Notice people specifically coming to ask, please allow me not to join you. Or for example, in Surah Tawbah, where there is a description of the battle of Tabuk, one of the last battles the Prophet participated in. Surah 9, ayah number 44. لا يستأذنك الذين يؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر أن يجاهدوا بأموالهم وأنفسهم. O Prophet, never will come to you to seek permission for leave he who believes in God and he who believes in the Prophet. You know who will come to seek permission for leave and exemption? إنما يستأذنك الذين لا يؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر. They profess outwardly, we believe in God. لا إله إلا الله. We believe in you, Prophet. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. But in actual fact, they don't believe. Evidence? When the time comes for sacrifice, they come and ask for permission. Excuse me, I got problems. I cannot join you. Allah's response to that. وَلَوْ أَرَادُوا الْخُرُوجَ لَأَعَدُّ لَهُ عُدَّةً. If they were really serious, they did want to participate, when they came to you and they said, oh, we've got an excuse, they should have shown some evidence of preparation. They've got no evidence of preparation. In fact, because of their lack of willingness to participate, to distance themselves from their possessions, to be ready to sacrifice, because there is that lack of responsiveness, Allah has already rejected them. We don't want Him to play a role in this grand plan. Sorry. وَلَكِنْ كَرِهَ اللَّهُ إِنْبِعَاثَهُمْ. Allah has rejected them. فَثَبَّطَهُمْ. And therefore, He punishes them by making their hearts feel heavy-hearted. Oh, it's so difficult for us to sacrifice. They're being punished. وَقِيلَ قُعُدُوا مَعَ الْقَاعِدِينَ. And Allah tells them, their hearts begin to feel these sentiments. Go back and stay back with those who are the invalids. The corollary of this is, therefore, that individual who displays his readiness and responsiveness to participate in this grand plan, God has accepted him as an agent, as an instrument. And therefore, he has a lesson to teach us. Qasim. Notice these verses I quoted from Surah Ahzab. Please allow me not to go. Surah Tawbah. Please grant me exemption. Contrast. Qasim persistently, insistently, consistently. Please allow me to go. Please allow me to come. Please let me go. A young man. Let me contrast with yet another case. A person known as Harthama bin Abi Muslim. His wife narrates this incident. That Harthama participated in the Battle of Siffin. And once they finished Siffin, on their return back to Kufa, they passed via Karbala. So they prayed the morning prayers in Karbala with Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imam Harthama reports, I saw the Imam pick up a handful of the clay of Karbala. فَشَمَّهَا. He smelled its fragrance. ثُمَّ قَالَ وَاهًا لَكِّ أَيَّتُهَا التُّرْبَةِ. God praised this great, privileged piece of clay. You know why? لَيُحْشَرَنَّ مِنْكِ أَقْوَامٌ يَدْخُلُونَ الْجَنَّةَ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. You know, from this clay, on the day of judgment, a people will be brought back to life who should go to Jannah without hisab. There is no individual who on the day of judgment can go to Jannah without hisab. Hisab meaning every act has to be reckoned for and accounted for. A community of people would be raised from this clay who would go without hisab. Oh, their hisab has already taken place in the dunya. Moment by moment, these individuals conducted a process of self-accounting and self-reckoning. Moment by moment, they checked their responses. The invitation from their Lord, they responded to it. What is the account for now? They have managed to reach a place where they have overcome their desires for selfishness and egotism. They've already done their hisab in the dunya, it seems. And hence in the akhirah they shall enter without hisab. Harthama comes back home and reports to his wife. Harthama reports to the wife as if he was a bit doubtful. What do you mean, clay, people coming back to life? This is what your master has said. It seems she was more of a follower than he was. She responds by saying, أيها الرجل إن أمير المؤمنين لم يقل إلا حقا. I believe that whatever he has said is nothing but the truth. If he has said so, it will happen. Harthama did not believe then. You know when he believed? When after 20 years, suddenly he finds himself in the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad. Oh, suddenly he finds himself in the same surrounding of Karbala. 20 years ago I was here. Oh, I heard something from Ali alayhi salam about this specific land. He crosses over from the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad and goes to the camp of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He seeks audience. He reports, the wife reports that I reached the camp and I greeted him, Imam alayhi salam, and Imam asked me, are you a friend or you are a foe? Are you with us or you're against us? فقال معنا أنت أم علينا. Notice the responses we've already seen so far. A conversion from a state of active opposition, like Hur. A conversion from a state of silent opposition, like Zuhair. Ardent, active support, like Habib bin Mazahir. Partial support, like Abdullah bin Ubaidullah bin Hur Ju'fi. Partial support just of possessions. Partial support just of their person temporarily, like that of Dhahak bin Abdullah al-Mishriqi. Look at this response. Are you with us or are you against us? So he says, La ma'aka wa la alayka. I'm not with you, I'm not against you. Well, where do you stand? He says, well, you know, I've left behind daughters, young daughters, and I'm afraid for them. Surah Ahzab, Inna buyutana awra, give us permission. We cannot come with you. Our homes are exposed to danger. And Imam's response is almost the same response he gave to Ubaidullah bin Hur al-Ju'fi. Famdhi, you can take your leave, but remember one thing. You must make sure you distance yourself from here. حيث لا ترى لنا مقتلا ولا تسمع لنا صوتا. Be sure that you're so far away that you should not hear any complaints and protests that we may raise. Be sure you're so far away from us that you don't see any one of our members being killed, and yet you deny us your support. You know why? فَوَالَّذِي نَفْسُ حُسَيْنٍ بِيَدِهِ. I swear by he in whose hands Hussein's life is. لا يسمع اليوم واعيتنا أحد. Not a single person who is exposed and near to us hears our predicament, sees our massacre, فلا يعيننا, and then refuses to support us, إلا أكبه الله بوجهه في النار. But that God will punish him in the fire of hell. The plan of God is mankind should be exposed to the opportunity to become an agent and an instrument in the hands of God to advance the cause toward perfection. The whole universe is moving toward perfection, whether we like it or not. We are being offered the opportunity to become a member, to participate, to become in unison, to harmonize ourselves with this gradual, progressive movement towards perfection. If we deliberately say no, the very forces of the universe will act against us. You want the full manifestation of the full force of the universe against you? Jahannam. The option and the opportunity is offered to everyone. Where do we stand? Look at Qasim. And look at these other cases. Before we discuss a little more detail about Qasim, allow me to remind ourselves of the potential lessons that we can learn from his sacrifice. Qasim was a young teenager. He was born somewhere around the 46th or 47th year of Hijrah. So in the 60th year of Hijrah, at the time of Ashura, he was probably about 13, a young teenager. His mother was a slave girl, married to Imam Hassan alayhi salam. But she was a virtuous woman to an extent that Imam elevated her to the status of becoming the mother of such a great hero. When she was offered the chance for freedom, apparently she refused. She opted to continue to stay with the household of the Ahlul Bayt. And this mother played an active role in the upbringing, in as much as Imam Hussein, the uncle, also played a role in the upbringing. The results of which we see in Karbala, as we will discuss his responses, his attitudes, his declarations, his battle cries. A teenager. I would like to share some of the problems or struggles a teenager can possibly have, and let's see what inspiration we can draw from the case of Qasim, son of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Let me just quote an example, and then we'll try to discuss this matter a little more in detail. I quote a case for you, is just an illustrative case. A counselor who meets teenagers with problems offers this example. Let's say Catherine. He reports she came to him, a 15-year-old. She came for the counseling session at the insistence of her mom and her dad. There's a problem. She was doing about average in school, and she attended her youth group in her community. But there was a problem. Recently, Catherine's behavior changed, and that was a cause of concern for the parents, and hence the reference to the counselor. First of all, she was noticed to become a member of a neighborhood party, and that party got out of hand to an extent that the police had to be called in. And then she was brought home to the parents by the father of a friend who attended that party. And he reported to the parents for the first time, you know, Catherine, 15-year-old, she was drinking in that party. And the parents were shocked. They were surprised. They reported to the counselor that they didn't even suspect that Catherine could engage in such an activity. You see, in the community and at home, she was a totally different person. She dressed differently and she acted differently at home. Later, her parents, on investigation, discovered that she led a double life. When she went to school, she took a different set of clothes in her gym bag. Once she arrived in school, she changed over in the restroom to her different pair of clothes. In the school, she did not hang out with the same friends that she had in the community. She avoided them. And she was trying to break into a group of students in the school who had a totally different set of values from the community that she came from. And they were worried specifically that she had begun to date older boys. Exposure to drinking, dating, drugs, and the list goes on. A teenager, whether we like it or not, is exposed to outside influences which psychologists then label as peer pressure. Pressure to conform to a behavior, to values, to clothes style, to talking manner, which this person would otherwise have not willingly done, but in order to conform, to be accepted, to be respected, to gain approval, he or she succumbs to that pressure. That would be peer pressure. Peer pressure can be a very good effect to socialize, to adopt social customs of a group. You become active in teamwork, you learn coordination. Human beings are created in such a way that they should live in society, in community, and they can perform much better, efficient tasks in that teamwork. However, peer pressure can have a negative effect. And therefore, these effects that we see of dropping out of school or experimenting with drugs or racism or shoplifting or premarital sex. What are you, a nerd? If you don't accept the offer of a date or sex and date. What are you, a jerk? The pressure to conform to negative behavior. That's the problem teenagers are exposed to. So we need to consider, what is peer pressure? 1, 2, why does it happen? And 3, how to resist it and reform it, and how Karbala can serve as an example. Remember, we say that every individual who participated in Karbala potentially then becomes an agent in the hands of God to advance the cause, and therefore has a lesson to teach us. I would like to quote here a study done by Larkin, a sociologist, about the different groups, peer pressure, different peer groups. Of course, this study is based in the United States, but it's just an example of the potential pressures that teenagers may be exposed to. Larkin, in his book Suburban Youth in Cultural Crisis, he reports that in schools in the United States, you can identify certain groups. So for example, he labels one as the jocks. They're the males, they're consumed by athletics. They're above average grades, they're friendly, they're self-confident. That's one group. The female counterpart, he calls them the rahras, the socially elite. The third group he identifies are the freaks, the males and the females who jump into drugs. They're not concerned about school. They frequently skip school. A fourth group are the greasers, those who are into marijuana, into drinking, and they're ambivalent about school. Yet another group he identifies are the politicos. They're the elite in the school government. They're the intermediaries between the school, between the students and the administration. And then you have the academic elite, the math wizards, the ones who literally breeze through the class. And then, of course, he identifies the motorheads, the ones who are consumed by cars, the ones who come in greasy, dirty clothes, showing they're working on the car. However, these are all minorities, he says. The silent majority is in between. But the pressures are there. Question: why does peer pressure occur? What are the factors that influence peer pressure? And therefore, how to resist it? It's very natural for the human being as he's growing up to be bonded and attached and to be dependent on the parents. But as you become older, you become a little more independent. You start socializing and developing friendships. That's natural. The need to be respected, to be accepted, to belong, to get approval, very natural. However, this natural process can be deviated in certain circumstances. Number one, specifically if the individual, the teenager, is suffering from a sense of insecurity, a sense of low self-esteem, low self-worth, whereby he then feels that by belonging, by joining, by conforming, I can reestablish my identity. It's a weakness whose solution he finds through joining a peer group. Yet a second factor that can aggravate or influence the negative peer pressure is a situation where at home, parents in their relationship with their children fail them. Parents could be either too authoritarian, or they can be extremists, or no, they could be too permissive. They could be rejecting. He doesn't find a home in his house, and therefore he looks for a home outside. And there can be several reasons why parents do behave in that way. Maybe there's some marital lack of adjustment, and the child begins to feel angry and rejected. Or there could be just a situation where the child is deliberately trying to provoke the parents just in order to test them. Are they ready to listen to me? If they overreact and they don't display any calmness and control or sense of sensitivity or empathy with the teenager tends to then reject. Or maybe their communication problems. They never sat down to discuss, to have a dialogue, to reach an agreement. Or maybe there is a problem of excessive permissiveness in the family. A variety of reasons which can pull a person towards negative peer pressure, either low self-worth or parental lack of proper parental supervision. Or no, yet another reason could be the person knows it's wrong to enter into drugs or premarital sex or to date, but he doesn't have the courage. He doesn't have the assertiveness to proclaim his principles no. And he conforms. He lacks in the interpersonal skills of relating. He feels that if he's called a nerd or a wimp or rejected, that that's a disaster. Yet a fourth cause for peer pressure could be that he's got somehow a belief system which is faulty. I can only gain approval, I can only become popular if I join them. And there's a certain streak of irrationality in that. If we accept these four major factors, which the psychologists have mentioned as influencing the teenagers towards accepting the negative peer pressure, let's see how we can educate ourselves and our teenagers to be able to work against these four factors. Self-worth. If the teenager is taught and educated and reminded that your worth, your status has been divinely decreed. If you're a human being and if Allah has created you, therefore Allah loves you. Look at the emphasis Quran gives in reminding us about our dignity, about our self-worth, about the special status that we enjoy in God's eyes. For example, Surah Mu'minun chapter 23, ayah number 12 onwards. وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ سُلَالَةٍ مِنْ طِينٍ. And remember, we created man from a special portion of clay. ثُمَّ جَعَلْنَاهُ نُطْفَةً فِي قَرَارٍ مَكِينٍ. The process of embryology and development of the sperm on to become a full fetus is then discussed. Various stages. You were a sperm and you were transferred to the womb. ثُمَّ خَلَقْنَا النُّطْفَةَ عَلَقًا. Then you became a stage that resembled a blood-sucking animal like the leech. فَخَلَقْنَا الْعَلَقَةَ مُضْغَةً. Then you became a flesh. فَخَلَقْنَا الْمُضْغَةَ عِظَامًا. And then the bones were created. فَكَسَوْنَا الْعِظَامَ لَحْمًا. And muscles were created over the bones. Oh. Different stages in the physical development of the fetus. At this stage, the ayah changes tone. The ayah now says, ثُمَّ أَنْشَأْنَاهُ خَلْقًا آخَرَ. At that position, at that stage, when his physical development is complete in the womb, a new creation was granted to it. The soul. فَتَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ. God then congratulates himself. This is my creation and I'm proud of it. Look at yet another ayah. When Adam was created, Allah says, فَإِذَا إِنِّي خَلَقْتُ بَشَرًا مِنْ طِينٍ. In Surah Sad, that's chapter 38. Toward the end, there's a description of the creation of Adam. Again, the dignity and the honor and the pride that God feels in the creation. Observe. إِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي خَالِقٌ بَشَرًا مِنْ طِينٍ. Recall the time when God announced to the angels, I'm going to create from clay a human being. فَإِذَا سَوَّيْتُهُ. When I complete its fashioning and its modeling in its physical sense, وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي. And then I shall inspire into it, I shall breathe unto it a soul that belongs to me, not an ordinary soul. Look at the honorific entitlement that is given to us. Or Surah Baqarah, Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa, that we are created as the representatives of God. We're not ordinary creation. Or Surah Bani Israel, chapter 17, ayah number 70, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. We've honored man, we've given him special dignity. And other verses of this nature. Essentially, the worth of the human being is so high that A, God is proud of us. B, we are an expression of the love and the care and the mercy of God. C, we are entitled to become the representatives of God on the earth, provided, of course, we obey His will and are therefore ready and chosen to carry out His will. And that's not an ordinary status. So if one of the factors that make us succumb to peer pressure is low self-esteem, we need to re-educate ourselves. We need to remind ourselves, we're not ordinary individuals. We receive the special grace from God and the promise for support and development. Or, if an individual seeks to gain popularity and prestige by conforming to the society, well, Allah teaches us popularity and prestige is in the hands of God, not in the hands of X, Y, and Z and the peers around you. They're not the ones who give you prestige. God is the one who gives you prestige. Surah Fatir, chapter 35, ayah number 10, Allah says, "Man kana yuridu al-izzata, fa inna al-izzata lillahi jami'a." Whosoever seeks honor and prestige. Well, remember, honor and prestige is a perfection. A, any perfection is therefore existent. B, any existent entity has to be brought into existence. C, and the only power that can create is God. D, therefore, any prestige is to be sought from God and God alone. E. Or, look at Surah Munafiqeen. After they were returning from the battle, يَقُولُونَ, the Munafiqeen are supposed to have reported to have been said, لَإِن رَجَعْنَا إِلَى الْمَدِينَةِ, when we go back to the city, لَيُخْرِجَنَّ الْأَعَزُّ مِنْهَا الْأَذَلُ, those who occupy positions of honor and power and status and position in society, or we shall repel these believers. Or they are the ones who are following the Prophet and creating problems for us. Allah's response, قُلْ لِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَلَكِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Inform them the true honor and true prestige belongs to God alone, one, and to whoever, and to the Holy Prophet, because he's the full representative of God, and therefore a reflection, means of reflection of God's divine qualities and God's perfect qualities, including that He is Aziz, and the Prophet is the representative of that name, and therefore the Prophet has Izzah. And the believers, to the extent that we are obedient to him, to that extent we can begin to reflect, to receive and to reflect and to relay to the society the divine quality of Izzah. Indeed, there's an interesting ayah which says that if popularity and if prestige is something to do with the hearts of the people, they all go towards this individual. Well, Allah says, let me tell you, you know who controls the hearts? Surah Anfal, chapter 8, ayah number 63, Allah makes a strong statement about His absolute control over the hearts of the people. Notice, He says, remember the situation where you wanted to bring about unity between warring parties, and you could not do that, and it was Allah alone who had the power to bring about this unity in the hearts. You had never the power to bring all the different tribesmen in Arabia together to be united. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ أَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِهِمْ. God is the one who brings ulfa and harmony between the hearts. وَلَوْ أَنفَقْتَ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا مَا أَلَّفْتَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِهِمْ. Even if you were to expend all the wealth, A, if you had all the wealth, B, if you're willing to expend it to win popularity, even if you were to spend all the wealth to win and to buy popularity, you would never have done that. You know why? Because the hearts don't belong to you. The hearts belong to God and God alone. How do I then change myself in such a way that I qualify to receive this reward of popularity? Surah Maryam, chapter 19, ayah number 96. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ سَيَجْعَلُ الرَّحْمَنُ لَهُمْ وُدًّا. You want to wood, you want love, you want acceptance, you want respect, you want popularity, where Allah says, because He's all merciful, He's Rahman, for those who believe in Him, and for those who are virtuous in their deeds, Allah grants them that popularity. Because the hearts belong to Him and Him alone. So if peer pressure is to gain popularity, we need to re-educate ourselves. Whose heart do you seek? Hearts belong to God. If we succumb to peer pressure because of low self-esteem, well, remember, esteem has been granted to you automatically if you are a human being who believes in God, and therefore God is proud of you. And if you succumb to peer pressure because of the lack of the ability to say no, well, then realize you need to develop the assertiveness and the determination that once you know what is right and what is wrong, be bold enough to say so. Surah Ibrahim, chapter 14, ayah number 22. Allah says, on the day of judgment, when the affairs will have been decided, and those who will be going to Jannah will proceed, and those who will be going to Jahannam will also proceed. At that time, those who were sinners and those who will be relegated to the fire of hell will complain, "Oh Lord, it wasn't our fault. It was the pressure. It was Satan who misguided us. And had it not been for his deviation, we would not have ended up in damnation." Shaitan, Allah quotes now what Shaitan will reply then. مَا كَانَ لِيَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ. Recall that God in His mercy never created me with the absolute authority over you, that when I said do it, you were helpless, that you had to do it. God never created Shaitan and never any other human being with so much power that the moment they command us do, that we have to do. We have the power to say no. إِلَّا أَنْ دَعَوْتُكُمْ. The authority that Shaitan has over us, or any other human being who may become an agent in the hands of Shaitan has over us. The degree of authority and control and influence is إِلَّا أَنْ دَعَوْتُكُمْ. I can invite you, I can suggest to you, I can call you towards a party, I can offer you a drink, I can try to glamorize drugs in your eyes, but that's all. إِلَّا أَنْ دَعَوْتُكُمْ فَاسْتَجَبْتُمْ لِي. You had the power to understand what is right and what is wrong. And having understood what is wrong, you decided to follow the wrong. فَاسْتَجَبْتُمْ لِي. You responded positively to me. فَلَا تَلُومُونِي وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Do not blame me, blame yourself for having understood the truth and falsehood, and for having decided to accept falsehood. Peer pressure cannot work if we recognize our self-worth in God's eyes. Peer pressure cannot work if we recognize that we have the power to know the right and the wrong and the power to say no to the wrong. Peer pressure cannot work because we will not then seek popularity by conformity, because the hearts of the people are in God's hands. If we obey the master of the universe, then that master promises that the rest of the universe will work for us. And it's these ideas that then manifest itself in the case of Qasim, son of Hassan, alayhimus salam. Salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. His strength in faith and his determination manifest itself right on the eve of Ashur, when Imam Hussein tests his companions and gives them the opportunity to depart if they so wish. Let me quote a hadith which is narrated by Abu Hamza Thumali from the fourth holy Imam who was there in Karbala, of what happened on that eve of Ashura and what exchange took place between Qasim and the third holy Imam. The fourth holy Imam reports that on that eve, Imam Hussein addressed his companions, Ya ahli wa shi'ati, all my followers, all my supporters, ittakhidhu hadha al-layl jamala. The night is dark. It's a good cover for you. Take the cover. Wanju bi anfusikum. Go and save yourself. Please, leave if you so wish. فَلَيْسَ الْمَطْلُوبَ غَيْرِي. Let me remind you, the enemy seeks my blood and my blood alone. They've got nothing to do with you. You're free to go. وَلَوْ قَتَلُونِي مَا فَكَّرُوا بِكُمْ. I swear once they kill me, they're not going to be bothered about you. Fanju. Go and save yourself. Rahimakumullah. May God bless you. If you're worried that I have extracted allegiance from you, well, let me tell you, أنتم في حل وسعة من بيعتي وأهدي. I release you from the obligation of the allegiance that you've sworn to me. Imam Zainul Abidin reports, the other narrations report individually what the different companions and the different members of the household responded to this offer of freedom. But Imam summarizes it in one sentence. Imam Zainul Abidin says that all of them replied with one common theme, Ya Sayyidana, you are our Lord, you are our Master. Wallahi, Ya Aba Abdullah, la khadalnaka abada. We have recognized that you are the righteous leader, that our salvation is in following you. In your superior judgment, you have recognized that the duty of a godly person at this moment is to sacrifice. We accept your judgment and we obey you. والله لا قال الناس تركوا إمامهم وكبيرهم وسيدهم وحده حتى قتل. I swear we do not want to be exposed to the blame of people, to the blame of history. History can censure us. How could you have been so blind and so selfish as not to recognize that there was a righteous leader, that he was divinely appointed, that he had the ability to judge and evaluate and assess the society and recognize what's right and wrong? He made a decision. You abandon him? What reply would we give to history? لا نخليك. We shall never abandon you. أو نقتل دونك. We are ready to die for you in your company. Having ascertained the total loyalty and the love of the companions and the members of the household, now Imam prays for them. Now Imam informs them. Let me warn you, let me inform you what's going to happen tomorrow. غدا, tomorrow on the day of Ashura, Ya qawmi, غدا أقتل. I shall die. I shall be killed. وَتُقْتَلُونَ كُلُّكُمْ مَعِي. each one of you is also going to be killed with me. لا يبقى منكم واحدة. None of you shall survive. Certain death. What was the response of the companions? Alhamdulillah. The companions responded by saying, Alhamdulillah alladhi akramana bin nasrik wa sharrafana bil qatli ma'ak. We thank the Lord from the bottom of our hearts that He has honored us. Prestige, dignity, honor. He has honored us by choosing us to be in your company and affording us the opportunity to sacrifice ourselves in your path. أَوَلَا تَرْضَ أَن نَكُونَ مَعَكَ فِي دَرَجَتِكَ. O Imam, do you not approve and accept us to also join you in the sacrifice here and therefore the attainment of the reward and bliss in the hereafter? And Imam, of course, declares his approval. Jazakumullah khairan. God surely recognizes your readiness to sacrifice, and God will reward you. At that moment, Imam Zainul Abidin says, at the end of the group, there was a young boy seated named Qasim. And he was wondering if everyone has been promised that tomorrow he is going to participate and he is going to be given the chance to sacrifice. But what about me? Do I have that honor and prestige also of being selected to become a member of this party of godly people? He advances and goes to his uncle and he says, وَأَنَا فِي مَنْ يُقْتَلْ. Am I also included in that list of those people who will be killed tomorrow? Imam alayhi salam looks at the young boy. He's a young teenager. He's not even reached puberty. There's nothing wajib on him. But he's so ready, he's so eager, he's so ardent, he's so zealous. Imam looks at him and feels a wave of compassion and mercy. And he says, my dear nephew, Ya bunayya, كيف القتل, كيف الموت عندك? Tell me, tomorrow it's serious. It's a question of confronting the enemy. An enemy who is brutal, who's merciless, who's heartless. It's death. Death. Are you ready for death, my dear nephew? And Imam Zainul Abidin reports that Qasim says, Ya ammi, ahla min al-asal. To me, death is sweeter than honey. A young boy who has the capacity and the maturity to understand A, that this is a confrontation between truth and falsehood. B, the confrontation requires sacrifice. C, the sacrifice is to the extent of death. D, death is more superior than life. E, not only is it superior, it's sweeter. There is no pleasure, physical pleasure in the world that can parallel the pleasure that a believer can experience once he leaves this physical world and enters that higher realm, which is closer to God and therefore more perfect, more powerful, where the pleasures are more pure compared to here, where the pleasures are more profound compared to here, where the pleasures are more permanent compared to here, where the pleasures are more pure compared to here. Death, oh, it's sweeter than honey. Amazing. Young boy, look at the perception, look at the maturity. And Imam then, after having ascertained that even Qasim has that level of maturity to understand what's right and what's wrong, and the readiness to sacrifice, he accepts him. Iwallah fidaka ammuk. Iwallah. Tomorrow you shall also be included in the list of those people who are going to die. On the day of Ashura, after the various companions proceed and sacrifice themselves, and after all the companions have given up their lives, when the turn comes for the Bani Hashim, Imam's son Ali Akbar proceeds, and then the other nephews of Imam proceed, all the adults. Then the youngest able person remaining is Qasim bin Hassan. But it's a difficult situation because the boy is so young. There is no need, there is no requirement. He can stay behind, he can go back safe. History reports that at that moment he comes to the Imam. Imam looks at him and he embraces him, and then he starts crying. Imam looks at this young boy who's not even pubescent, embraces him and begins to cry, and both of them cry in each other's arms. I don't know, they don't speak any words at that moment, they're just crying. We'll come back to this to understand why is it that Imam Hussein, before granting the permission, embraces this young boy and cries with him. They cry and they cry. And the boy keeps on asking, please grant me permission. Please let me go. فَأَبَى الْحُسَيْنَ أَنْ يَأْذَنَ لَهُ. But Imam Hussein refuses to grant the permission. Qasim insists. Qasim begins to show respect for the Imam. He kisses his hands. He shows affection towards the Imam. Please, he pleads, please, allow me to go. Imam Hussein sees this is a terrible situation where all the able-bodied adults have already sacrificed. Is my situation so pathetic that now I have a young man who's not even pubescent, who's not even required to sacrifice himself? He's demanding to go forth. Imam finally releases him, releases the embrace. And Qasim proceeds. We now shift focus and look at the battlefield from the perspective of one of the narrators who was in the enemy's camp, known as Hamid bin Muslim. Hamid reports that I was in the camp of Ibn Sa'd, and I was watching the battlefield, and this was a strange scenario now appearing. A young man appears on the battlefield. أنظر إلى هذا الغلام عليه قميص. He had a shirt, وإزار, and a loincloth, and he had some footwear, and I cannot forget the vision, and the scenario is so clear and so vivid in my mind. I remember his footwear there was a strap of the footwear dangling. I remember very clearly it was the left foot whose strap was dangling. It was so clear for me. He was a young man, brilliantly shining like the moon. He came to the battlefield. The boy apparently seems to have been so young that Imam did not even have the military dress of protection to fit his body size. The boy came out without any protective military gear. But look at the bravery of the man. إن تنكروني فأنا ابن الحسن صبت النبي المصطفى والمؤتمن. If you don't know me, let me introduce myself. I'm the son of Hassan, the grandson of the Prophet. You know which Prophet? The chosen one, who because of his purity, of his goodness, of his virtue, because of his perfection, he was chosen, and I accept him. You claim to accept him, but you have rejected him. The Prophet whose perfection manifested itself even before the declaration of prophecy. Al-Mu'taman, he was Amin, he was trustworthy. He didn't add or subtract, not even a single thing from his own selfish ego. Everything he spoke, everything he thought, everything he did was according to the will of God. إن تنكروني فأنا ابن الحسن صبت النبي المصطفى والمؤتمن وهذا الحسين كالأسير المرتهن بين أناس لا سقوا صوب المزن. And this is Hussein. He's all alone, and you surrounded him. You have imprisoned him. Now you recognize one of the possible reasons why Imam Hussein embraced this young man and did not allow him to go, and he cried and he cried. The pathetic situation was the ummah had depraved itself and degraded itself so low that a young man of this age could know what is truth and falsehood, could know who is the grandfather, could know the perfect qualities of the grandfather and the prophet, and to accept him and to be ready to die and to confront an enemy who was heartless and merciless and pitiless, and he was ready to commit this heinous crime. And Qasim continues the battle. لا تجزعي نفسي فكل فان. Qasim addresses himself, and as he fights, young man, not even a pubescent, فقاتل قتالا شديدا, and he fought a fierce battle. Some reports say tens of people were killed by him. But how could he manage to do that? لا تجزعي نفسي كل فان. Nafs, what are you worried about? Of course we'll see pain. Of course we'll see suffering. But be brave. Everyone is going to die. If you're going to die, you better die a death of dignity than a life of humiliation. يا لا تجزعي نفسي فكل فاني اليوم تلقين ذر الجنان. What are you worried about? You leave this physical, lowly, material world and you're going to be transported to that higher realm, away from this indignity. Or yet another battle cry which has been narrated from Qasim. إني أنا القاسم من نسل علي. If you want to know me, I am Qasim from the generation of Ali, that famous hero of Islam. نحن وبيت الله أولى بالنبي. If at all there are people who are more deserving to follow the path of the Prophet, we are those people. And there's Hussein here. نحن وبيت الله أولى بالنبي. The authority to govern a Muslim society belongs to those who follow the Prophet, and we deserve it more min Shimr dhil Jawshan wabn ad-Da'i, more so than Shimr and the illegitimate son who is now ruling Kufa and Sham. Political views, maturity. فَقَاتَلَ قِتَالًا شَدِيدًا, and he fought bravely. But the enemies were cowards, and specifically so one coward by the name of Amr bin Sa'ad, not Umar ibn Sa'ad, Amr bin Sa'ad bin Nufayl al-Azdi. Hamid bin Muslim, sitting in the camp of Umar ibn Sa'ad, reports that as we were watching the battle from a distance, and we were amazed, a young man fighting so fiercely. So this gentleman tells me, Wallahi la ashuddanna alay. I swear I'm going to go and kill him. So Hamid bin Muslim says, what is wrong with you? Subhanallah. There are enough people out there to kill him. What do you have to do with that? Wallahi la fa'alanna. Oh no, I will go and kill him. He proceeds to the battlefield. He approaches the area of the battlefield from an area where Qasim doesn't notice. He ambushes Qasim. The Maqtal says, ضَرَبَ رَأْسَهُ بِالسَّيْفِ. He deals a deadly blow on the head of Qasim. Qasim experiences imbalance. He cannot control himself anymore. He's ambushed and he falls to the ground. At that moment, Qasim cries out, Ya Amma, oh my uncle. If Hamid bin Muslim could be sitting there and watching this wonderful scenario of the confrontation of truth and falsehood, would you be surprised that the uncle is not watching what's happening? Ya Amma. The riwayah says Hussein shot into the battlefield swiftly like a hawk. Like a ferocious lion, he descended on the enemy, and like a group of deer cowards, the enemy ran away. Imam, like a hawk, targeted his vision on the enemy. He knew who the killer was. He went after him. The man was running away, Amr ibn Sa'ad al-Azdi. Imam struck him with his sword. He protected himself. him. But what happened was they came in such a large number that there was a confrontation and there was a commotion and confusion. And Hamid bin Muslim says, suddenly dust rose and we just couldn't see what was happening. But later on, the dust settled down. This killer had been trampled under the horses of the very same enemies who came to help him. فَانْجَلَتِ الْغَبْرَةُ, the dust settled down, and then we notice Hussein is seated on the ground on the battlefield, and the head of Qasim is in his laps. And Qasim is on his deathbed now, the last moments of his life. Imam Hussein is reported to have said, عَزَّ وَاللَّهِ عَلَىٰ عَمِّكَ أَن تَدْعُوهُ فَلَا يُجِيبُكَ أَوْ يُجِيبُكَ فَلَا يُعِينُكَ أَوْ يُعِينُكَ فَلَا يُغْنِ عَنْكَ. Qasim, it's very difficult for your uncle to digest the fact that I'm proud of your sacrifice. You have devoted and dedicated your whole life. It was never required of you, but you came. I'm proud of you. It hurts me so much that you called for me, but I couldn't reach on time. Or when I came, I couldn't help you. Or when I wanted to help you, the help was not going to benefit you. بُعْدًا لِقَوْمٍ قَتَلُوكَ. Qasim, your sacrifice deserves the supreme mercy of God. Qasim, your enemy should be deprived of God's special grace. How could they be so cowardly and so inhuman as to not recognize your sacrifice? Hamid bin Muslim says then Imam picked up the young body and he carried it back to the camp, and we could literally see the chest of Qasim embraced in the chest, on the chest of Imam Hussein, and the feet of the young man was dragging on the ground. They finally brought him to the camp where all the other members of the Ahlul Bayt who had fallen were placed. Definitely, the other members of the family must have been grieved in as much as Imam Hussein was grieved. And these are the final words he speaks. Sabran ya bani umumati. Endurance, fortitude, patience. This was a great sacrifice. It had to be done. We accept and resign ourselves to the will of God. Sabran ya bani umumati. Sabran ya ahla bayti. All the women of the household, sabr. This was a great sacrifice. We must accept and resign to the will of God. We must be firm, we must be determined, we must be steadfast in our resistance. Don't let us waver. This was a great achievement. And therefore control ourselves. لا رأيتم هوانا بعد هذا اليوم أبدا. Let me tell you the result of the sacrifice of Qasim. Sabr. You will now never suffer humiliation ever. That was Qasim's contribution. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah wa ala al-arwah allati hallat bifina'ik wa anakhat birahlik. Alaykum minna jami'an salamullah ma baqina wa baqiya al-layl wa an-nahar. Wassalamu alaykum wa rahmatullah.